Hey guys, Chaos Shinobi here. This is a story where after Kakashi refuses to teach Naruto, Naruto runs away and discovers the Iron Man suit and technology, and becomes the new super genius Tony Stark of the Naruto world. Now let's begin. Chapter 11. When they got to the inn, Naruto saw the girl at the desk and he asked, "Hey, what room is the Sandame in?" The girl looked up and got wide-eyed and said in a stutter voice, "Naruto-sama." Before she fainted, Naruto screamed, "For the love of God, can I get some fucking help here?" The Sandame's voice said, "And what would you need help with, Naruto?" As he came down the stairs, but when he saw Tenten in Naruto's arm, he narrowed his eyes and moved quickly to Naruto's side, and he saw the blood on Tenten cloths and said, "Hurry, put her down and tell me what happened." As he cleared a spot for Tenten, Naruto sat her down and said, "We were attacked by Kisame Hashigaki, Itachi partner, but luckily Itachi wasn't there. He got her in the arm with Samahata and the back of the head with his fist." The Sandame hands were already glowing green, and he checked her head and arm and he asked, "Anywhere else?" Naruto said, "Not that I saw. I took most of the damage, but my gift took a beating." The Sandame frowned at this, but after a few moments sighed as he looked Tenten over once more and then eyed Naruto as he said, "She has a minor concussion and will most likely be out for the rest of the day, but her arm will take about 3 or 4 days to heal the rest of the way. What about you? Any injuries?" Naruto grabbed the arm of Kisame from Gaara's sand and said, "Just a piece here and there." The Sandame's eyes were wide a moment and asked, "Is he still alive?" Naruto said, "Unfortunately, yes. After Tenten was taken out, I forced us off the cliff into the ocean to save her from more damage, and I took his arm while we were underwater and he fled to keep from dying of blood loss. I plan to go back there after I rest a little bit and see if I can find Samahata." The Sandame said, "Not without Jiraiya, you're not. We can't let Akatsuki get their hands on you or Gaara." Temari narrowed her eyes and asked, "Who is Akatsuki, and why would they be after Gaara?" Jiraiya's voice said, "Akatsuki is a group of S-class missing nin. They plan to capture and extract each of the bijou. For what purpose, I don't know. I only know of 4 members: Kisame Hashigaki, Itachi Uchiha, Sasori of the Red Sand, and former member Orochimaru." Making the Sand Sibs wide-eyed hearing Sasori name, Gaara said, "And they will be coming after Naruto and I, trying to get all the info he can." Jiraiya nods and said, "It is one of the reasons why Naruto and I are on this trip, to return you home to inform Suna about this threat and yourself." As he tossed Naruto a scroll, Naruto asked, "What's in the scroll?" Jiraiya said, "It's the instruction for Kuchiyose no Jutsu, as well as a few toads who you need to know for when you can summon them." Now, how much did Kisame see and know now? Naruto sighed and said, "Rasen Shuriken, he already knew about my Senbon trick, and because of the amount of time Samahata hit me, he most likely knows about my gift now, along with both my chakra weapons, though they were not much help." Jiraiya frowned and said, "That's most of your arsenal, kid." Naruto frowned and said, "I know, but I couldn't help it. Kisame was too strong for me." Temari asked, "What is this gift you keep talking about? Is it Kyuubi?" As she eyed Naruto. Naruto looked nervous and said, "Nothing. Look. Can you take Tenten to your room, Temari? Just because I didn't see any other injuries doesn't mean she didn't take them, and I don't want to cause any problems. I don't think she would want any of us to help her if she needs it." As he got a little red on his cheeks, Temari blinked looking at him and then looked at the others and said, "I get it, Geese. You want me to check her out and watch her since I am the only other female in the group. Grab Panda Bear and follow me to my room." As she began going up the stairs, Naruto followed to the 3rd floor, and Temari opened a door and Naruto followed her into the room, and she motioned for the bed and he put Tenten on the second twin bed in the room, and Temari said, "Now get out so I can make sure she doesn't have any other injuries, you pervert." As she shoved him out of the room and slammed the door closed and he heard it lock. Temari frowned as she walked back over to Tenten and looked at the blood and the wound and thought, "Well, Panda, let's get you cleaned up." As she walked over to Tenten's bag and pulled out several scrolls and thought, "So she seals everything, not just weapons." As she put the scrolls back and walked over to Tenten and began to remove Tenten's cloths and got a few of her own supplies and doctor a few scrapes and minor cuts, as well as washing some of the dirt and blood off of her, leaving Tenten in only her panties and her chest bindings. Temari thought, "Well, her body's not bad. Shows she is a real kunoichi instead of one of those wannabe fangirls. I can respect that, though we are going to have a talk when she wakes up. I need to know what happened with this Akatsuki." After dropping Tenten off in Temari's room, he entered his room where Jiraiya and the Sandame were, and the Sandame asked, "All right, Naruto. I want to hear everything that happened." Naruto sighed and began telling about talking to Tenten without telling what was actually said, and then he detailed the battle with Kisame and Eva showed a hologram of it. The Sandaime was quiet for several minutes after it was over and finally said, Naruto, while I am pleased that you protected your teammate and did what was necessary, I don't like the fact you threw caution to the wind and endangered yourself and her by following him into the water. You can fly, even if it was damage you still had partial ability to fly, so you should have after knocking him off the cliff and getting free flew back up and got her to safety. Not use Lee Rinden to slam him into the water trying to take him out. Naruto frowned and looked down and the Sandaime said, but I am proud of you, Naruto. You showed in the battle you did have good Chunin qualities by ordering her to leave as well as rearming her even though she was armed. I noticed you were trying to use the scythe as you would a sword. That won't work because they're two different styles. Naruto said, I know. I got some books on staffs, scythes and swords to read, but I haven't had a chance to yet. The third said, well, I could write down for you the basic katas for the staff if you want. There are only 10 of them and they would help you with the scythe. Naruto was wide-eyed and said, really, that would be great, Gigi. The third smiled and said, well, get some rest, Naruto, and I will have that for you in the morning. Were you able to get everything taken care of that you needed to? Naruto's smile faded and said, yeah, though the fighting damaged it a little. Jiraiya said, it happens, kid. There is always collateral damage from fighting, especially to the innocent. As he remembered Rain Country and the 3 orphans he taught there. Naruto frowned and said, I guess. It's just that was the only thing I had left of Haku and now it's gone. The Sandaime said, you're wrong, Naruto. You still have something of this Haku person. In here. As he touched Naruto's heart and here. And then his head. Naruto sighed and nods and said, if you don't mind, I'm not feeling too well anymore and need some rest. Today been emotional for me as well as physically tiring. The Sandaime said, of course, Naruto, let's go, Jiraiya. As he got up and left with Jiraiya. After they left, Eva said, you know I am proud of you. You protected Tenten and showed Akatsuki you were not just going to sit back and let them get you. Naruto thought, yeah, but now they know what I can do and will be ready next time. I need to get stronger. Tenten could have died today. I can't let that happen to my teammates. Especially one who accepts me for me and not Kyubi. Eva said, you might have to tell her about me, Naruto. She did see you take damage a lot and not get hurt. Naruto sighed and nods and said, well, it's time to get to training. Keijibunshin no Jutsu. Alright, I want 7 of you to read all those books and the scroll on summoning while the other 3 go work on chakra control until you're almost out of chakra and dispel. The ones who are reading, if you finish the book or scroll, trade with the others and read it again. I want all theme memorized. I am going to go get something to eat with Inari, Tsunami, and Tazuna. As he jumped out of the room window. Once Jiraiya and the Sandaime made it back to the Sandaime room, the Sandaime said, Jiraiya? He's exhausted mentally. I didn't realize before since he always had on his mask, but he's tired. I want you to see if you can help him. Jiraiya frowned and said, I know. Weasel just informed me that they're planning to go into hiding for the next 3 years, but they caught 3 already. The kid did a number on Kisame though. Besides the severed arm, he also got a slice in the side. An inch lower and it would have taken out his kidney from what I saw. The third asked, will he survive? Jiraiya said, unfortunately yes, and the kid can forget going to get Samahata. I saw it crawling back to Kisame using its blades to move itself. The third sighed and said, when you're not training him yourself, Jiraiya, I want you to give him scrolls to study off of. We have to get him stronger fast or he won't survive. Weasel is only 5th strongest in that group from his reports. Jiraiya sighed and said, I understand. I guess I better go plan what to teach him. The third nods and Jiraiya left the room and the Sandaime sighed before he prepared to order room service. The next morning when Tenten awoke, she found herself in a strange bed in a room she had never seen before, and she looked around and frowned when she saw Tamari putting her hair up, and she sat up wincing and Tamari said, take it easy, Panda. You got a little roughed up yesterday. Tenten asked, what happened after I passed out and where is Naruto? Is he all right? Tamari turned and said, yeah. He is fine, though I was surprised at how long he could fuck you while you slept. Tenten's eyes got wide as she looked down at her body and Tamari burst out laughing as Tenten saw how she was dressed in her panties and bindings and was worried a moment until she heard the laughing and she glared at Tamari and said, screw you, dessert rat. That's not funny. Tamari wiped fake tears from the corner of her eyes and said, ah damn. I needed that. So what really happened out there? You come back looking like you took on an entire team by yourself and all Naruto came back with was wet cloths. Tenten frowned and asked, and why the hell should I tell you anything? Temari smirked and said, because I had to take care of you, or would you want one of the guys to check you for wounds? Also, Hokage-sama said the guy who attacked you were after Naruto and my brother, and I need to know everything I can about them so I could protect him. As her expression turned from joking to serious, Tenten blinked and asked, where are my cloths? Temari said, they're in the bathroom. I washed the blood off of them for you. As she grabbed her bag and packed her stuff back up, Tenten immediately jumped out of bed, grabbing her bag, and ran toward the bathroom and began to change. After she got dressed, she walked out and saw Temari was sitting on the bed, and she asked, well? Tenten frowned and said, fine, as she began to tell what happened with Kisame. After she was done, Temari asked, so you're saying he has some kind of armor on that kept him from being hurt by Kisame's sword? Tenten said, yeah, but I didn't see the armor even though I felt it and heard the sound of metal hitting metal. Temari nods and said, well, we better get downstairs before they come looking for us. We are supposed to leave as soon as you're up and ready. Get your shit ready, Panda-chan, and quit being a useless damsel in distress. It is so fangirlish. No wonder I kicked your ass. As she left quickly, ignoring Tenten's scream of rage. When Tenten got to the lobby, she saw Temari standing with her brothers, and she saw Naruto standing over by Jiraiya and the Sandaime, and she jumped over the rail and leaps toward Temari with a roar. Temari saw this with a smirk on her face, and she grabbed Tenten's arm and flipped her over and slammed her against a coffee table, breaking it, and twisted Tenten's arm and said, bad girl. Sit. Naruto, acting quickly when he heard Tenten roar, ran over, and as Temari said, sit, he grabbed her from behind and said, stop it, both you. In a commanding voice, pulling her away from Tenten, who stood up and made a leap at Temari again, only for Gaara-san to wrap around her, and he said, Naruto asked you both to stop. Now listen to him. After several moments of both girls trying to get free of Jiraiya, walked over and said, if you both can't get along, then I have no choice but to force you to. As he pulled out a pair of handcuffs and locked both Temari and Tenten's hands together, making both girls glare at each other and him before they stopped struggling and were let go by Gaara and Naruto. The third sighed as he walked over and looked at Tenten and asked, now that you both have calmed down, would you please explain why you attacked her, Tenten? Tenten glaring at Temari several moments and said, it's personal, sir. The third frowned and looked at Temari and asked, what about you, Temari? Do you have anything to say? Temari said, no. I think Panda here realizes her place. With a smirk, Tenten screamed and tried to lunge at Temari, only to be stopped by Naruto, who got between both of them and said, stop it, while releasing some ki and made both girls freeze from it. After they stopped fighting, Naruto glared at both and said, do you both think you can act like kunoichi instead of a couple of fangirls fighting over a guy? Both girls blinked and looked at him and thought basically the same thing. Did he just insult me by calling me a fangirl? His answer was a pair of lumps on his skull. Naruto muttered to himself as he rubbed his head and stepped back, and the third shook his head and said, now that you're both calmed down, is everyone ready to leave? Tenten said, I need to go grab my scrolls from my room. The third looked at both girls and said, very well, but no fighting, either of you. You have already destroyed private property. If you both cannot get along for the rest of the trip, I will see to it that both of you have to pay Naruto here for damage to his inn, and ask both the new Kazekage and Hokage to give you both solo D-rank missions for a year. Both girls paled at this and quickly said, we won't fight. At the same time, the third nods, and they both went up the stairs to get Tenten's scrolls. Naruto sighed, and the third asked, so how long do you think it will take before they start fighting again? Kankuro said, knowing Temari, I would say they will be at it again before we cross the bridge. Gaara said, tomorrow. Naruto said, I don't care as long as they don't destroy anything else. I don't want to cause anyone here any trouble after everything they went through already. As he walked over to the desk where another girl was at, and he pulled out several $100s and he said, take this and replace the table they broke, please. The girl behind the counter said, of course, Naruto-sama, though may I ask, when will you be back again? Naruto frowned and said, I don't know. Why? The girl said, because I was wondering if you would like to go out on a date the next time you came through. With a blush on her face. Jiraiya smirked, and the third closed his eyes and looked away, and Naruto said, how about we wait until then to decide, because I don't know when or if I will ever be back again, and I don't want you to miss a chance at happiness waiting on a possible friendly date that may never come. If I do come back and you're not with someone, you can ask me then, and we can go from there. Deal. The girl frowned a moment and then smiled brightly and said, deal, Naruto-sama. Naruto let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding, and he turned to the others and saw Tenten and Temari both with the others looking at him, and he asked, what? Jiraiya chuckled and the third said, I believe it is time for us to leave now, Naruto. We don't want to delay any longer. Naruto nods slowly and said, right, let's go. As he headed out the door, the group traveled in silence until they got back in the Fire Country after crossing the Great Naruto Bridge, and as they jumped through the trees, Tenten and Temari were side by side, still handcuffed together. As they traveled, Jiraiya looked at Naruto and asked, so how many have you gotten on the Rasen Shuriken? Naruto glanced at him and said, 7. Jiraiya nods and said, have you looked at the scroll for summoning I made you? Naruto said, yeah, I had a clone read it last night while I had a couple of others read the books I have on swords, staffs, and scythes. I plan to have them reread them though because I want to make sure I got all the info from them. Jiraiya nods and the third said, that reminds me, Naruto. I wrote that scroll with the kata for you and I will give it to you when we stop around noon for a break. Naruto nods and Tenten asked, what about me? I mean, do I have anything to work on or? The third interrupted her and said, I haven't forgotten you, Tenten. I have a scroll with 10 Suetun Jutsu I want you to work on. I asked Guy what your elemental affinity is and he told me it was water. I know that you won't be able to practice them much when we get to Suna since water is so hard to come by there, but I also added 4 Doton Jutsu for you to try that will help you should you ever face a wind element again. Tenten nods and Temari jumped harder on the next leap, jerking Tenten's arm and nearly causing her to miss the next branch, and Tenten glared at her as Temari smirked. Jiraiya said, that reminds me, Naruto, here, channel chakra into this so I can see what affinity you have. As he handed Naruto a small piece of paper. Naruto took the paper and looked at it a moment and he sent a small amount of chakra into the card and it split down the middle and then the outside edge of it got just a little wet and Jiraiya raised an eyebrow and said, it appears you're a wind element with a small secondary element for water as well. Temari glanced at Naruto and thought he has a wind affinity. As she eyed him more carefully, the Sandame said, that is rare, Naruto. In Konoha besides my son Asuma, and the Yondaime was the only other wind affinity that I can remember in all these years. Tenten looked at Naruto and said, that reminds me. You said your mother passed away and her name was Kushina Uzumaki, but who was your father, Naruto? Naruto looked at her and he put his hands together and said, Taju Kagebunshin no Jutsu. As the entire area behind where the group was jumping was suddenly covered in smoke and the group stopped and the Sandame asked, why did you form those clones just now, Naruto? As he eyed all the clones who were now walking up and down the trees while balancing leaves on their hands. Naruto said, it's Thursday. Shizun told me that I need to start a schedule of doing chakra control exercises several times a week, and since we are heading toward the desert, and they don't have any trees there from what I was told then, I need to get my practice in now. Temari snorts and said, it's not like we don't have our own chakra control exercises. Naruto said, I guess, but I don't know them, now do I? I only know the ones Konoha knows. As he looked at her with resentment on his face. The third frowned as he saw this and said, Naruto, while it is a good idea to keep up your practice with your chakra control, doing it while on a mission, especially while tree hopping, is not a smart idea. Naruto looked at him and winked and the third blinked and thought, why would he wink at me like it was a joke? As his eyes got wide as he looked at Tenten and thought, I see. You didn't want to reveal who your father is, so you did something to cause a scene. As he gave Naruto a pointed look and Naruto said, all right, I get it. As he cancelled the jutsu and nearly 500 Kagebunshin went up in smoke. Kankuro said, wasn't that a waste of chakra forming all of those Kagebunshin? Naruto said, not really. When you think about the bonus of Kagebunshin, anything they learn before they are dispelled or destroyed is transferred back to the user, so I just got over 2 hours worth of chakra control exercise in less than 5 minutes. Each of the genin got wide-eyed at that and Gaara, who thought a moment, looked at Naruto and said, do you think I could learn that jutsu, Naruto? Naruto blinked and looked at Gaara, thinking quickly, and the Sandame said, I am afraid that is not. Naruto interrupted him and said, GG, catching the third's attention, and he continued and said, maybe that might not be a bad idea. I know what you're going to say about that being a forbidden jutsu, and I agree that it's not a good idea to just teach anyone that jutsu, but there are a couple of exceptions in this case you might want to think about. The first is Akatsuki. I got lucky both times I faced them so far because they underestimated me, so I am going to have to get strong quicker, but I am not their only target. The second, this is you said it yourself that besides your son, there isn't anyone in Konoha who can use wind elements. Maybe if I teach Gaara the Kagebunshin jutsu to help him train to get stronger to keep them from getting him, he could get me some help with my wind element. That way we both get stronger and better ninja for our village and to keep Akatsuki from getting us. The third thought a moment as Jiraiya said, he does have a point, sensei. Especially with that coming up. The third frowned as he looked at everyone there, and he looked at Gaara and said, I will consider it, but we need to get going. I will give you my decision when we get to Suna, but you are not to teach it to him unless I approve Naruto. Agreed. Naruto frowned and said, yeah, I got you, Gigi. Tenten asked, so are you going to answer my question now, or are you going to try and divert attention again, Naruto? Making the Sandaime smirk to himself, Naruto said, you say something, Tenten. Making Jiraiya and the Sandaime face fault. Tenten glared at Naruto and Temari said, is Foxy shy about his daddy? Naruto was about to say something when he heard Eva say, don't lose your cool, Naruto. They are just teasing you to see what buttons it takes to get a rise out of you. Naruto thought, where have you been, Eva? Eva said, I have been working on the repairs to the armor. It is at 70%, but it will take a little time to finish repairing it. Naruto thought, okay. I was worried something might have happened to you since you usually talk to me earlier than this. Everyone was watching Naruto's face as it shifted several times, and Tenten said, Naruto? Naruto? Why? As she snapped her fingers in front of his face. Naruto blinked several times and saw everyone looking at him, and he asked, what? Temari said, you spaced out there for a moment. Panda here called out to you several times and you never answered. Did my comment about you being shy about your father disturb you that much? Naruto said, no, it's just, I was thinking about some stuff that happened recently. Sorry. Kankuro said, you know you suck at lying, right? I mean, it looked like you were having a conversation. You were talking to Kyuubi, weren't you? Naruto's eyes got wide and he looked at Jiraiya and the Sandaime and he began to fidget until he heard Eva in his head, and he took a deep breath and said, no. I forgot I had left a Kagebunshin back in Wave to look for Kisame Sword Samehada, and it came across the decayed body of one of Gato men Zabuza killed when he killed Gato before he died that had washed up. It was gross having had some fish eat at it, and I wasn't expecting that memory. As for my father, it's not that I am shy about who my father was. It is just that I am not sure what to think about my father is all. From what I was told about him, he was just a simple man with a simple life that died the same day I was born. Nothing big to tell about him. As he shrugged his shoulders, Jiraiya saw how Naruto covered up the truth, said, well, I guess we should get going again, right, sensei? The third said, yes, I agree, Jiraiya. Also catching on to what Naruto did. Naruto smiled softly and began hoping to the next set of branches, and the third said quietly as he pulled up beside Naruto, you need to control your facial expressions better when talking to your tenants in the future if you don't want to answer certain questions. It might be a good idea to try and lay low the rest of the trip if possible. Naruto nods and said, right? The third asked, how is your gift? Naruto glanced to make sure no one was close enough to hear and said, repairs are only at 70%. It will take a little while to repair. The third nods and he quickly jumps in front of Naruto, increasing his speed and showing the Genins and Chunin exactly why he is a Kage. Jiraiya also matches his pace, forcing all talking in the group to end as they have to concentrate harder to keep up. When the group stopped at noon, the Sandaime walked over to Naruto and handed him a scroll and said, this is the kata I promised you. As he walked over to Tenten and said as he handed her a scroll, and this is the scroll I promised you. Study them when we can, but get you something to eat right now because we leave in 20 minutes. As he walked over and unsealed a sandwich, Naruto began to memorize the scroll, and Tenten was sitting beside Temari, who was talking with her brothers, was reading hers having already ate, and Jiraiya asked, why don't you eat, Naruto? Making everyone look up at him. Naruto frowned and said, I'm not hungry. As he rolled up the scroll and walked into the woods, ignoring his stomach that growled. Jiraiya narrowed his eyes and looked at the third, who had also narrowed his eyes, and Jiraiya began to walk after Naruto into the woods. He found Naruto about 100 yards away from the others, and he asked, so what's up? Naruto said, nothing, why? Jiraiya said, oh. Just the fact you didn't eat anything until we got to Wave Country and you're not eating now. Naruto frowned and said, it's nothing, all right. I just didn't bring anything to eat, so I will just catch me something to eat tonight. It's no big deal. Knowing that Jiraiya won't let the subject drop until he answered. Jiraiya frowned and slapped Naruto upside the back of the head and said, Baka, don't you know that you should always get you something to eat for missions? Naruto glared at him, and Eva appeared and said, he tried Jiraiya, but the stores threw him out. Before disappearing. Jiraiya frowned as she left and looked at Naruto, who was looking at the ground, and Jiraiya pulled out a scroll and unsealed some beef strips and said, here, eat up, and if you have that problem again, let me know, Naruto. I am your godfather and I want to help you. Naruto frowned and thought, only now you do. As he saw Jiraiya walk away back toward the group. After he was gone, Naruto heard Eva say, you know that he does care as do others. Naruto sighed and thought, I know, but I don't feel right at the moment. Something is wrong with me. I can't put my mask back on around the others for some reason, and it annoys me because people are actually seeing the real me and I don't like it. Eva said, but isn't that exactly what you wanted people to do? To see you for you and not Kyuubi. Naruto began to eat and thought, I guess you're right, but I can't help but want to be defensive. I mean, he is my godfather and I heard what his reason for not being there was, and even though I accept it, I can't but feel betrayed. Eva said, just like you do with the Sandaime, right? I mean, he knew who your parents were, and until you forced it, he wouldn't tell you anything. Naruto frowned and thought, yeah, I guess you're right. What should I do? Eva chuckled and said, accept it and go on. You are only human after all, but I think you are going to need to reveal me sooner than you think. Naruto thought, what do you mean? Eva said, I used my sonar ability to listen in on the girls last night after we got back and this morning to make sure your teammate was okay for you, so you wouldn't worry, and I overheard Temari questioning Tenten about the battle and Tenten had to tell her about the armor. Naruto sighed as he finished eating and thought, I guess then I don't have a choice but to tell her, but I won't until she asks me about it. Eva said, good. You feel betrayed because of the Sandaime and Jiraiya, but you are doing the same thing to her. Trust her and I promise that things will work out between you and she won't feel betrayed like you do now. Naruto thought, alright, but not until she either asks me or until you're fully recovered. What is the status? Eva said, 75%. Naruto nods and gets back up and walks toward the group. When he got there, the Sandaime asked, is everyone ready? Temari asked, can he release Panda and me because I need to use the restroom and I don't want an audience? Jiraiya looked at them both and asked, are you both going to behave now? Both girls nod and he walked over and uncuffed them, and both girls ran in opposite directions into the woods, making everyone blink, and Kankuro said, I guess they both needed to go bad. Naruto shook his head and asked, so how long till we get there, Gigi? The third said, actually, I would say we should reach the border tomorrow morning around 9, and then if everyone is ready for desert travel we can be in Suna by 8 tomorrow night. Kankuro said, you honestly expect those two to travel by desert standards in the heat of the day? It's their funeral. Naruto said, can it make up, boy? Tenten and I both can make it because we are both two of the best Konoha has to offer. It was just dumb luck that she drew your sister, who was her natural weakness. If she would have faced anyone else, she would have made a pincushion out of both of you. Naruto tensed as he felt a pair of arms surround him from behind and he heard Tenten say, ah, that's sweet. Nobody ever complimented my skills like that before, but Naruto felt a kunai at his throat and he heard her say, you ever tell me to shut up like you did when we faced Sushi, and I don't care what kind of armor you are wearing. I will kick you ass so hard the fox will spend the rest of your life trying to pull my foot from it. Naruto actually swallowed hard at this and said, fine. Tenten said, good. Now what is that armor? Temari said, I was wondering about that as well. I mean, Panda said she could not see it at all but heard and felt it, so what is it? Naruto looked at the Sandaime and Jiraiya and both had an amused look on their face, and Naruto said, it's personal and I rather not say right now. At least until it is fully repaired, but please don't tell anyone else about it because it pretty much as much a part of me as Gara-san is for him. Temari said, fine, but I want to know as well, Foxy. Tenten said, alright, I will give you some time and I have another thing I want to ask about. As she leaned forward and whispered in his ear, Eva. Naruto's eyes went wide but quickly hid it and he thought, how the hell does she know about you? All he got was silence. Naruto stepped back and said, I think it's time to go. Right, Gigi? Jiraiya said, yeah, it is, so let's go, and I told you that it was only a matter of time before someone found out about that. Naruto said, whatever, Ero-sanin. As he jumped into the trees after the Sandaime, who had already taken off. Jiraiya grumbled and said, no respect. As he caught up to the group, who was now moving at top speed for everyone but Jiraiya and the Sandaime. As the group made it to a border town near the border of Wind and Fire Country, they soon checked into a hotel and Naruto was laying on his bed when the door to his room knocked. Naruto frowned as he got up and, remembering his last experience with a guest in his room, asked, who is it? While he pointed his right arm at the door ready to launch a rocket senbon at the door. He heard Tenten's voice from the other side. It's me, Naruto. I came to talk to you about some stuff. Can I come in? Naruto frowned and said, "Hold on a minute." As he bit his lip and walked over toward the door and opened it, and he saw Tenten standing there, and he said, "Come on in." Tenten walked in and he closed the door and walked back over and sat down in a chair and asked, "So what do you want to talk about?" Tenten looked around the room and then at Naruto and said, "I want to know what is going on really. What is with the armor and what is your connection to Eva?" Naruto said, "Never heard of her." Tenten smirked and said, "I never said Eva was a female." Naruto frowned and asked, "How do you know about her?" Tenten crossed her arms and said, "Not going to happen until I get answers. What is Eva exactly and what is that armor exactly?" Naruto said, "Then it appears that we have nothing to talk about then. Don't let the door hit you on the way out." As he motioned for the door, Tenten glared at him and said, "Eva was designed by my mother and father." Naruto's eyes widened a moment and he sat down and said, "I see. So that is why your dad has been so kind to me. Look, Tenten, I know you don't know me very well, but please listen to me on this. Never mention the name Eva again or that your parents were involved in any way to me, because if you do, then it could cost your dad and you a lot of trouble from not only my enemies but also from the Hokage and others. Gigi might even order your dad's death over this." As he looked at her, Tenten said, "My dad already said the same thing when I met Eva, but I need to know what my dad did to you and what is going on. My family is involved, so please tell me." Naruto thought, "Eva? What does she mean you met her?" The room shimmered a moment and Eva appeared and she said, "I am sorry, Naruto-kun, but there was something I felt I needed to do when you first went into her family weapon shop. I recognized her father as one of my creators by heat recognition. I then heard Tenten talk about how her mother passed away, and I figured with everything that my creator did for you, then you would not mind if I gave Tenten a little gift as well by letting her at least meet a part of her mother at least once. I am sorry for revealing myself without permission." Naruto sighed and said, "I see. Why didn't you tell me, Eva?" Eva said, "Because I knew you would not want to reveal who it was who gave me to you even on accident, so I figured since my creator would never tell who he was, he would have Tenten also remain silent on it so everyone would be safe." Tenten asked, "What exactly are you, Eva? I know you're a hologram, but of what and what exactly did my parents create that my father calls his sins?" Naruto bit his lip and Eva looked at him and he said, "Tenten, I think you should respect your dad's wishes on this. Your father is a good man and—" Tenten said, "Like your father, the Yondaime." Naruto's eyes widened and asked, "What?" Tenten glared at him and said, "I am not stupid. My father said your mother was a redhead with green eyes, so that means you had to get your hair and eyes from your dad. Then when I heard you talk about the Yondaime using you to seal the QB, that made me question why would he pick you of all people, and then I thought about what the Yondaime actually looked like from the picture of him I saw in the academy textbook as well as the Hokage office, and you're the spitting image of his with whiskers, so quit trying to blow smoke up my ass and answer the damn question." Naruto snorts and burst out laughing and said, "Shikamaru was right. Women are troublesome." As he looked down at Tenten and said, "I guess you're not going to let this go, are you?" Tenten shook her head no and Naruto sighed and said, "Fine. Eva, seal all armor." Eva nods and Naruto's body changed a little and Tenten gasped as she saw the core and Naruto said, "What you are looking at now is Eva." Tenten got up slowly and walked over and touched the core and asked, "What? Why did my dad put this in you?" Naruto closed his eyes and said, "After the semifinals were over, I went to the hospital to track down Kakashi because I heard he went to check on Sasuke at the hospital. Kakashi basically told me I wasn't worth any of his time training and only Sasuke was," causing Tenten to cover her mouth. Naruto looked at her and said, "After that I snap. I started to rant that even if I had to make a deal with the QB itself, I was going to beat everyone in the finals and kick Sasuke ass. Your dad snatched me out of the hall and used a henge to make him look different and asked me if I was really willing to make a deal with a demon to not be seen as worthless like Kakashi made me out to be. I said yes, and he asked me if I was willing to take a chance on another way. A way that if it failed would have killed me, and I agreed. He gave me a card with the address to that house I asked about and told me to meet at a certain time. I did, and he took me to the basement and told me about how the armor was created and how he and your mom came to Konoha. Somehow I passed out and I don't know why, but when I woke up Eva was a part of me then. I spent the rest of the month learning to use the suit and training as well as coming to terms that my own father sealed QB in me, and that the man I thought of as a grandfather lied to me my entire life, not only about QB until a teacher from the academy tried to kill me when I graduated, but also about my parents. All those years of being lied to and betrayed by those I thought I could trust hurt. Thanks to Eva here, I was able to come to terms with it, and because of her my life has never been better. If it was not for her, I most likely would not have been able to beat Gaara, and he would have destroyed the village, and if what Ero-sanin told me is true, then Gigi would be dead. Your dad is a good man, Tenten, and I believe so was your mother. I don't feel any ounce of regret about what happened to me because if your dad had not have done what he did, I most likely would have become like Gaara was. Tenten bit her lip and looked at Eva and said, I don't understand though. I mean, I can understand about why the Hokage would be mad at my dad about doing something that could have killed you if it went wrong, but why does my dad think of the armor and Eva as his sin, and why are you trying to keep me from finding out? Eva said, I was originally created with the purpose of helping protect Snow Country. The weapon systems that are built into the armor was to allow the ninja of that country to better save and protect the lives there from not only enemies but also the elements, since it is always winter there. The project was under the control of the King of Snow Country brother. It was ran by your parents. What they did not know was that the armor was actually going to be used to take over the country. Making Tenten eyes widen as she gasped. Naruto said, when your parents found out, they took everything they had on the armor as well as the prototype and fled the country to Fire Country. They nearly made a complete escape, but one of the king's brother's men caught them. Your mom screamed for help, and luckily my dad was in the area and he saved them, but some of their research was taken. Tenten said, snow armor. The research that was taken was used to create snow armor and allowed the king's brother to kill the king and take over. Naruto looked at her shocked, and Tenten said, my mother's diary talked about how snow armor was used to take over that country, but she never mentioned that she was one of the original creators. Naruto sighed and said, yeah. From what I have researched about that country since I received Eva, the man who took over is evil and is killing what's left of the country. When I am strong enough, I plan to go there and save the country using Eva as your parents originally hoped she would be used. Maybe I might be able to find the lost princess that escaped with Kakashi if I can and return her to her throne. Tenten looked at Naruto and asked, but why? Naruto smiled sadly and said, I'm a Jinchuriki Tenten, a human sacrifice. I was chosen by my father to be a sacrifice to save Konoha. I am a sacrifice for all the pain and hatred the people of Konoha feel for Kyuubi. I chose to become a sacrifice for the dreams of your parents and the hope of helping Snow Country. I am willing to sacrifice my life to protect what is precious to me. Not because I have to be, but because I chose to be. Tenten looked down as she saw the smile on Naruto's face as a tear fell from her eyes, and she asked, so you're already giving up on everything to be a sacrifice for nothing? As she looked up at him with tears falling freely. Naruto said, no, I'm not giving up. I will find a way to do what has to be done. When I fought Gaara, I shattered the bones in my arm and it should have ended my career as a ninja. Ero-sanin and I tracked down Tsunade to become Hokage, and when I found her, she was a broken woman who had given up on life because of losing everyone close to her. She froze because of blood. Tenten, think about that. She was the world's best medic, but she became frozen by a small scratch that drew blood. Because of that, I attempted to do a surgery myself with only a 20% chance to live. Eva said, 10% and you passed out from blood loss. Had I not taken over the suit and got you to Shizune and convinced her to operate on you, then you would have died in an hour at the most. Naruto said, but not only did I survive that, but also when Orochimaru and Kabuto blew up the motel room I was passed out in. Tenten's eyes got wide and said, wait, what? Kabuto, the guy with glasses at the exam. Naruto said, yeah, he's actually a jounin and a sound nin. We think he's one of Orochimaru's most loyal followers. Tenten frowned and said, what was he doing in the exams then? Naruto said, he was a spy. He was supposed to get close to my team so he could get information on Sasuke so Orochimaru could give him something called a curse seal. I only actually know a little bit about it since I got ate by a snake, blew it up with Kagebunshin, and then fought Orochimaru himself while Sasuke was frozen in fear. Tenten looked at Naruto and said, so let me see if I got this straight. You met Orochimaru more than once and lived a Jinchuriki, Kisame, and Uchiha Itachi. Naruto said, don't forget Zabuza, Haku, the Demon Brothers, Gato and his army of bandits, Kabuto, Niji, and picked a fight with Tsunade. Tenten snorts and falls backwards and said, you must have a death wish, Snowman. Naruto blinked and asked, Snowman, why did you call me that? Tenten said, well, you're wearing snow armor all the time, what else am I supposed to call you? Naruto said, well, I only got the armor after the semifinals, and when I am showing the armor, I'm sort of called Iron Man. Tenten asked, you're kidding, right? Naruto shook his head no, and Tenten burst out laughing. Naruto sighed and said, so do you have anything else you want to laugh at me about? Tenten gasped for breath several times and said, nope, I'm good. With a smirk. Naruto shook his head and said, you can't tell anyone about any of this, Tenten. I don't want to see you or your dad get hurt for helping me, but I don't think I will shop at your store anymore. Tenten frowned and asked, and why the hell not? Naruto said, I don't want pity or charity, Tenten. Tenten slapped him and said, don't you dare think that. I may not know everything but my dad, and I don't do pity or charity. He gave you Eva and that armor for a reason. Besides, my family shop is the best damn weapon and supply shop in the village. You won't find any better cloths or weapon anywhere in Konoha. With a smirk on her face, Naruto rubbed his cheek and said, you slap me. Tenten said, yeah, what about it? Naruto looked at her and said, you actually slapped me. Tenten began to look unsure and said, yeah, I did. Naruto said, why the hell did you slap me? I was talking to you and BAM. Right across the face. What the hell made you do that? Tenten said, you pissed me off. Naruto looked at her and said, that's it. That's the reason you slap me, because I piss you off. Tenten frowned and said, yeah. Naruto got up and began to stalk toward Tenten, releasing a little ki, and she started to back up a little, and Naruto kept stalking her and asked, so if I felt like slapping you, that would be alright? As he got closer to her, Tenten swallowed and said, I think I should go. As she started to turn, not realizing how close to the wall she was, Naruto threw a fist and it hit the wall in front of her and said, I'm not done talking to you. Now answer the question. Is it alright for me to slap you if I feel like it since you slapped me? Tenten swallowed and looked scared and said in a shaky voice, no, it's not. Naruto leaned his head near her ear and whispered, then why is it alright for you to slap me? Tenten gulped and said, I'm sorry. Naruto smirked and said, then in that case, let's see if you're ticklish. As he began to tickle the side of her ribs, and Tenten started to laugh and scream, stop, please stop, stop, oh god, stop, I'm gonna pee myself. Naruto jumped back and laughed as Tenten tried to calm down, and she glared at him and he said, I forgive you, but please don't slap me, okay? As he smiled, Tenten said, I hate you. Jokingly, Naruto said, I know. Now go get you some rest. We got a long road ahead of us tomorrow. Tenten frowned and started toward the door and stopped and said, Naruto, thanks for saving me. As she left, Naruto sighed and Eva said, that was mean of you, Naruto. Naruto looked at her and said, perhaps, but at least she should be quite now. Let's get some rest. As he climbed into bed. The next morning, as the sun began to rise over the desert, the group stood there and Kankuro said, I hope you're all ready for this. As he began to walk out into the desert, as the others began to follow. As they group traveled across the sand, everyone saw that Naruto had his arms crossed and that he was actually using chakra to walk across the top of the sand. After about 2 hours, Temari asked, how do you know sand walking? Naruto shook his head and said, sorry, what did you say? I wasn't paying attention. Temari growled and asked, how do you know sand walking? It's a Chun-Nin level chakra control exercise in Suna. Naruto said, oh. The guys shadowing our group are using it. I just used their chakra pattern to figure out how they were doing it. The Sandaime frowned and asked, what guys shadowing us? As him and Jiraiya both began to look around. Naruto said, a mile south by southeast, there's a squad of 4 Sunanins following us since we left the hotel. I thought since both you and Jiraiya had looked at them, you knew they were following us, and they were like the ANBU patrol that followed us for the first 5 miles after we left Konoha. They turned back and started to head east about 10 minutes ago, so I thought they were just a border patrol. The Sandaime said, I see. I want notified if anyone else is following us immediately. Naruto said, yes sir. Temari said, that still doesn't explain how you're able to sandwalk. I mean, if they were that far away, how are you able to do it? Naruto said, compared to the chakra exercises that I normally do, sandwalking isn't that hard. You just form a small sheet of chakra on your feet a few inches wide, then your foot, so that way your chakra holds you up, keeping you out of the sand. Temari frowned and Tenten said, now you tell me. Naruto said, I wouldn't try it, Tenten. We still have a long way to go since I can't pick up Suna yet, so save your energy. Tenten frowned and said, very well, let's go. As she turned and started to walk again. It took 7 hours in the desert before the group saw the circle rocks of the hidden village of sand, and Temari smiled and said, there it is, Suna. The Sandaime nods and said, it has been 3 years since I have seen it. Let's get there so we can rest. As he continued to walk, When they got within 100 yards of the village, 3 swirl of sands appeared and Baki said, "Hokage-sama, what are you doing here?" The third said, "I am here to finalize the agreement between Suna and Konoha." Baki looked confused and said, "But the agreement was settled yesterday by the representative that you sent. All we have to do to finalize the agreement is to marry the Suna representative and to the one from Konoha." The Sandaime frowned and said, "I assure you that whoever it was that is here was not sent by me or Tsunade. If you could take me to the council and bring this representative, then we can get this incident straightened out, unless this is a way for Suna to try and get out of the peace treaty that we are reforming." While releasing some ki, Baki paled and said, "Of course not, Hokage-sama. This whole incident was because of the deception of Orochimaru doing, not our own original planning. Please follow me and I will lead you to the council chambers myself. You escort the rest of the party here to their hotel and you get a team of Dune and have them bring that man and his party to the council chambers. This way, Hokage-sama." As he pointed to the 2 men who came with him. The third shot a look at Jiraiya, who nods, and he went with Naruto and Tenten to their hotel room. A few minutes later, the Sandaime walked into the Suna council chamber room with Baki, and he scowled as he saw the other person who was in the room and asked, "What are you doing here, Danzo?" Danzo said, "A request from Suna to speed up the peace talks and return their genin to them reached the council of Konoha, and I was sent by them to finish the talks since you were busy with helping the village recover. If you would like, you can review the agreement that has already been agreed on and sent to the Fire Lord and Wind Lord." The Sandaime saw several members of the Suna Council shoot glares at Danzo, and the Sandaime frowned when the head of the Suna Council said, "Forgive me, Hokage-sama, for sounding rude, but the representative that was sent here by your village has already forced us to agree to several heavy penalties for our part in the recent incident. We have already sent the agreement that was received to both the Fire Lord and Wind Lord for their approval. Changing the agreement is not only an insult to us but to the lords themselves. If you would like to review the agreement so further troubles can be avoided." The Sandaime said, "Very well, but know that I am not happy with this. I sent a message to you after the attack on our village informing you that I would be the one who came to negotiate the new alliance. By you sending a letter to the council, you are undermining the authority of my office and could be considered another act of war. See to it that this never happens again, or the Godame Hokage may not be as forgiving as I am. Danzo, with the recent initiation of the Godame Hokage, your position on the council is no longer required and you will turn over all rights to that office when we return." As he was handed a scroll from a Suna Chunin. After reviewing the document, the Sandaime said, "I am forced to agree with everything on the document except for 2. The first is there is a threat to not only Konoha but Suna that Jiraiya, who has accompanied me, will be informing you on, and that you must also inform us of any information you have on this threat. This is not negotiable, and I will speak to the lords myself so they know of this danger and will accept the change. I also do not agree on the Konoha representative for the wedding to the Suna representative." Danzo said, "I am afraid you have little choice in that manner, as there is no one in Suna who is more qualified than the son of a council member in Suna at this time, and the wedding will be this afternoon since you have returned the late Kazekage daughter." The third smirked and Danzo frowned seeing this and said, "Forgive my rudeness, council of Suna, but which would you rather have as a joint member of your village and Konoha? The son of a soon-to-be former council member, or a Chunin who is the son of the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, who is also the hero of Wave Country, who was asked to take over as the feudal lord of Wave after the people of Wave ran their former member one out of the country, and also the only person to ever defeat Gaara in battle. He has also faced Itachi Uchiha once in battle, Orochimaru twice in battle, and recently faced Kisame Hashigaki in battle for a second time, taking his arm in combat." Making several council members gasp and Danzo to scowl. Danzo said, "Forgive me, but since we are in Suna, Hokage-sama, I am afraid that when a situation like this happens, then the laws of Suna take precedent over a popularity contest." A council member said, "I am afraid he is right, Hokage-sama. The laws of Suna are very specific when it comes to disagreements over the hand of any woman in Suna. Due to the hard life we live in Suna, we cannot afford for a civil war or destruction of our village, so when 2 people have a disagreement, there is a public battle, and the winner of the battle is the winner of the agreement." The Sandaime saw Danzo smirk and said, "Very well. When will the battle be?" Danzo said, "Since the wedding is set for this afternoon, Hokage-sama, then the battle has to be before then. I hope your representative is ready for it and not too tired from traveling here, Hokage-sama." The Sandaime said, "Very well. 2 hours before sunset. Is that agreeable to all of you?" Several council members quickly agreed and Danzo scowled and said, "Very well. I was hoping for sooner, but I can't have my way all the time. I will inform my son." as he turned and left. The Hokage said, "If that is all, I must inform my representative," as he turned and left. After he was gone, the head of the council said, "That was interesting." A voice that sent chills down each of the council members' bodies said, "Pray that Uzumaki wins, because if anyone else marries my sister besides him, I will destroy Suna." As they all looked and saw Gaara standing there in the Kazekage robes. Before they could say anything, Gaara continued, "I have also decided that I will become the Godame Kazekage of Suna, and anyone who does not agree with me can learn that I do not need Shikaku driving me crazy to kill them. Thanks to Uzumaki, my seal has been fixed, and I am now not only stronger than ever, but I am stable. Well, as stable as anyone who will destroy you all if anything happens to my sister." While releasing some ki, each of the council members saw sand crawling around their feet, and each looked at each other and gulped before saying, "We understand, Godame-sama." Gaara said, "Thank you for the nomination. Now inform me as to what has happened to our village, and also let me see this new treaty." As he sat down in the Kazekage seat. When the Sandaime got to the hotel where Jiraiya, Tenten, and Naruto were, he was not in a happy mood. As he closed the door, he looked over and Naruto and Jiraiya saw the look on his face and both asked at the same time, "What's wrong, Sensei/Gigi?" The Sandaime said, "Danzo." Naruto frowned and said, "Isn't he the guy you warned me about to stay away from when you told me about Kyuubi?" The Sandaime said, "Yes, he is. While you and Jiraiya were away fetching Tsunade and our stop and wave, Danzo came here to renegotiate the treaty, and for the most part he outplayed me and has already sent the agreement to the Wind Lord and Fire Lord for their approvals, and there is little I can do, but the problem is what else he got Suna to agree to." A swirl of sand startled all of the Konoha Nins as Gaara appeared in the Kazekage robes, and he looked around the room and saw Naruto and said, "I have a request of you, Uzumaki." Naruto asked, "What are you doing here, Gaara, and what is with the robes?" Gaara said, "I am now the Godame Kazekage of Suna. The council has agreed to my nomination. That is not important. I need you to make sure that you win the battle this afternoon. I trust no one else with my sister." Naruto blinked and Tenten asked, "What do you mean? What battle? What about Temari?" As she looked at everyone in the room. The Sandaime sighed and said, "Danzo has forced my hand. He had Suna agree to marry Temari as part of the new peace treaty that was signed. He wanted her to marry his son. The problem is that if he got his hands on Temari, then he would be able to use her to get to Gaara-san with the new relationship the two have formed since Gaara-san defeat against Naruto and having his seal fixed. He would then try and use Suna to eliminate all who oppose him for his bid for the position of Hokage. He has already tried to kill me once to take the position of Hokage. The reason he lost one of his eyes and an arm is because of our battle." Naruto scowled and asked, "Then why is he still alive?" The Sandaime sighed and said, "The fight was sanctioned by the Fire Lord because Danzo had saved the life of the Fire Lord's son and used the favor he earned to try to take over. We were not allowed to kill each other, but I had to nearly kill him before the match was declared in my favor." Naruto frowned and asked, "What does this have to do with me? I understand you not wanting him to get his hands on Temari, but why do I have to fight this afternoon and why me?" The Sandaime said, "In order to save Temari from his hands, I was forced to reveal certain information about you, namely your father." Naruto frowned and said, "So now I have to marry Temari?" Gaara said, "Not yet. Because of the laws of Suna, you must fight Danzo-san for the right to my sister's hand. The only way for a winner to be declared is if one of you kill the other, one of you is too severely injured to continue to fight, or one of you surrender. I trust no one else to protect my sister, so you must win, Uzumaki." Naruto frowned and looked at the Sandaime and asked, "If I win, can I not marry her?" "No offense, Gaara, but I am not good enough for your sister." Tenten frowned and the Sandaime said, "I am afraid not, Naruto. This is an all-or-nothing battle. If Danzo-san wins, then Temari life will become nothing but torture as Danzo uses her to gain what he wants." Naruto sighed and said, "What do you want me to do, Gigi?" The Sandaime said, "As much as it pains me to say this, I want you to kill Danzo-san. If not, then the mistake of letting him live will come back to haunt you as my mistake with his father has me." Naruto asked, "Any restrictions on how to do it?" The Sandaime said, "Naruto, I think you should know that the person you will be fighting is your age, but he is not to be treated lightly. I have no doubt in my mind the boy is most likely high Chunin or low Jounin in skills. Danzo is forcing the fight to be today since you will most likely be tired from traveling here. He has stacked the deck against you. I did all I could do by making the fight this afternoon 2 hours before sunset. I am afraid that after the fight that you will be forced to marry her." Naruto closed his eyes and said, I understand. Tenten frowned and said, Kazekage-sama. Gaara looked at Tenten and said, Gaara is fine, Tenten-san. Tenten said, Gaara, I was wondering, what exactly does the law say about this? What is the actual wording? Perhaps there might be a loophole that we can use to end this mess. Gaara said, I am not sure about the wording. Sandame-san, do you know the wording? The Sandame said, unfortunately, yes. The law says that in the event there is a disagreement between two parties over a piece of property, and in this case your sister is the property that is being fought over, that the two parties will fight in a public battle and the winner of the battle wins the property. Tenten frowned a moment and then she got a smirk on her face and said, I think I thought of something, Hokage-sama. You just gave the answer to how to not only save Naruto from being forced to marry Temari but also how to outplay this Danzo guy. Everyone in the room looked at her and Naruto asked, What do you mean, Tenten? Tenten said, You have to win Naruto for my idea to work. Can you do that? Naruto saw Tenten looking at him and he said, Yeah, I can win. What is your idea? Tenten said, After you win, that means that you are the legally then Temari fiancé, right? Looking at the Sandame. The Sandame said, Yes, until the wedding. Why? Tenten said, Then in that case, what would happen if two people were to disagree over a piece of property, in this case Naruto? What if I challenge Temari to a fight for the right to be Naruto fiancé? Then all we have to do is have Temari throw the fight and she would be free of having to marry Naruto, and after I won the right to marry Naruto we can just call it off and Naruto gets his freedom along with Temari and Danzo winds up getting nothing out of this deal. The Sandame bit his lip and Gaara said, That does seem like a good idea, Hokage-sama. What do you think? The Sandame said, Are you sure you wish to do this, Tenten? This has never been tried before, so there might be something in Suna laws that I am not aware of. Tenten said, It's the only chance Naruto has. He should not be a sacrifice anymore with as much as he already sacrificed for others. The Sandame looked at Naruto, who was looking down, and said, It's your choice, Naruto. Naruto smiled a small smile and said, Thank you, Tenten. I owe you. Tenten said, No problem, Naruto. You don't owe me since you saved my life already. Gaara said, Very well. I will inform Temari. Thank you both. As he sent Shushin away. After Gaara left, a small black mouse ran out of the room out of a small hole in the wall. After Gaara left, Naruto got up and walked over to the window and he put his arm against the wall and looked outside and thought, seal armor. As he was uncloaked before it sealed, and the Sandame and Jiraiya both looked over at Tenten to see her reaction, and she said, He already told me about it. He said he got it from a debt to his dad. Both men nod and Naruto said, Any chance I will get by without killing him, Gigi? The Sandame said, No, Naruto. From what I know of Danzo, failure is not an option. You fail, you die. Naruto closed his eyes and remained standing there for several minutes and said, If I am going to fight, then I need to get some rest then. As he walked over and laid down on the bed and placed his arm over his head to rest. Tenten looked at him and the Sandame and Jiraiya both looked at each other, and Jiraiya said, Sensei, why don't we go find something to eat for all of us? The Sandame said, That's a good idea, we all could use a meal. I trust you will both will stay here. As he looked at Naruto and Tenten. Naruto snorts and said, Yeah, I'm too tired to leave right now. Tenten said, I'm going to take a shower. The Sandame nods and left with Jiraiya. After they were gone, Tenten went toward the bathroom and came out a few moments later and said, You think you could help me? Naruto blinked and raised his arm off his eyes and asked, Huh? Tenten bit her lip and said, The showers have seals on them where it takes two people to get water out, so to save water. I am not going the entire time we are here without a bath, so that leaves me with you or... Naruto sighed and placed his hands together and was covered in smoke, and Tenten blinked and said, What the hell? Naruto got up and said, Long story short, it's an actual shapeshift. Tsunade and Shizen both tested it and both think that I could get pregnant if... Well, I figure this was better than having to feel weird with me and you sharing. Tenten said, You haven't been around my old team enough. Modesty is something you get rid of real quick with them. With Niji Bloodline and Guy and Lee team bonding, I lost what little bit of modesty I had around them, so go ahead and change back. Naruto snorts as he changed back and said, So you think their bloodline is used for peeping like I do? Tenten said, Yeah, but I am not the one who openly declared it in front of the entire village. Now come on, you wash my back, I wash yours. After all, this afternoon we are both going to be engaged. As she walked back into the bathroom. Naruto walked in and took off his cloths except his boxers, and Tenten kept her panties on, and she got in the shower, and once Naruto got in, the water came on and Tenten screamed, "Shit." Naruto said, "Damn it, that's cold." As they both looked for a water control knob, the water soon became warm, and Tenten said, "That was so wrong." As she grabbed the soap and rag and began to wash herself off while Naruto kept his eyes closed. Tenten glanced at him over her shoulder and blushed a little but frowned when she looked at his chest where the power core was, and she quickly scrubbed her body down and she turned and said, "You mind?" as she held the rag and soap over her shoulder. Naruto opened his eyes and saw the rag and soap and said, "Sure." As he grabbed them and began to wash her backside and said, "So Fuzzy Brows or Peeper ever do this for you?" as he washed her lower back while he sent a little chakra into his hands. Tenten arched her back and whispered, "No," as she bit her lip holding in a moan. Naruto smirked and said, "And here I thought you were going to say they did, so you could keep me from knowing you lied about your modesty earlier." Tenten went red from embarrassment when Naruto washed the back of her legs, while he was on his knees, and she realized he could look at her ass, but Naruto remained silent, and she said, "So you knew?" Naruto said, "Yeah," in a deadpan voice. When he finished her backside, he held the rag over her shoulder and said, "Here." Tenten took the rag and asked, "What was that you did a moment ago?" Naruto said, "Something Shizune taught me when we were coming back to the village with Tsunade. Because of the surgery on my arm, the muscles were very tense, so she taught me to send my chakra into my hands and rub them across my arm when water was on it. The water acts as a control agent to help release any tension you have in the area you're rubbing." The water shut off and Tenten said, "Stingy," as she stepped out while holding a towel in front of her. Naruto raised his left leg and the armor appeared, and he held the rag under the armor and water began to pour out of the armor onto the rag, making Tenten wide-eyed. Naruto said, "Water is a control agent to help protect me in battle also," as he stopped the water and began to give himself a wash-off. Tenten said, "I see," as she quickly dried herself off and got dressed as Naruto got out a few moments later and grabbed his cloths and got dressed in a pair of shorts and a shirt. When they left the bathroom, Tenten sat down on one of the beds and asked, "So want to talk about it?" Naruto was silent a few moments as he sat down also before laying back and looking at the ceiling and said, "I've killed before. The first time was when I saved Tsunami when 2 mercs were sent to kidnap her and Inari for insurance so we would surrender to Zuna Tagato. I also killed when I went back to Wave and stopped the men who were running the slave ring. Both times I did it because I had to kill. It was to save Tsunami and Inari life and then to save those girls' lives." Tenten said, "But..." Naruto sighed and said, "But this time I am being ordered to kill. Kill a Konoha ninja at that. I feel like Konoha is turning into the hidden mist." Tenten said, "The graduation exam." Naruto looked at her and said, "Yeah. Zabuza told us all about it when he first attacked our team, telling us we didn't have it in us to be real ninja. I made a promise to myself that I wouldn't become a mindless tool and I would forge my own path. I just don't know if I have it in me to kill the guy I am fighting or not." Tenten got up and walked over and laid down beside him and sat her head on her arm and asked, "What does your heart tell you to do?" Naruto closed his eyes and smirked, and Tenten asked, "What's with the smirk?" Naruto said, "Just listening to my heart. It's telling me 2 things. Tenten said, "Really? What's that?" Naruto said, "One is not to worry about the battle later and killing the guy I have to face. Do what I think is best at the time." Tenten said, "Sounds like good advice. What's the other thing it's telling you to do?" Naruto sat up on one of his arms and said, "I don't know if I should tell you. You might not understand what I am trying to say." Tenten said, "Hey, are you saying I am not smart enough to understand you?" Naruto said, "No, that's not it at all. I'm just not sure the words I could say would be able to explain it best. It might be better if I showed you." Tenten blinked and asked, "Wah?" as she was silenced and wide-eyed as Naruto lightly kissed her on the forehead, and he leaned back and said, "Thanks," as he laid his head back and closed his eyes. Tenten blushed as she looked at Naruto and asked in a stutter, "What was that for?" Naruto said, "For accepting me and for trying to make me feel better even after you know all my secrets. Nobody else knows everything I've told you about myself. I feel I can trust you, so I wanted to say thank you in a special way." As he looked into her eyes, Tenten looked at him for several moments and said, "You know, I want to say I'm sorry. I was wrong about you back when we first met in front of room 201. I thought you were a loudmouth idiot who wouldn't even make it past the first exams. You then blew everyone away by standing up to Abiki. You must have been very confident in your answers." Naruto snickered and Tenten asked, "What?" Naruto looked at her with a real smile and said, "I passed with a blank piece of paper. I didn't even write my name on the test." Tenten blinked and blinked again and said, "You're kidding, right?" Naruto said, "Nope. I've never been good with paper test." Tenten blinked and burst out laughing and said, "Oh man, I can't believe it. You stood up to the head of torture and interrogation with a blank test. You must have balls of steel." Naruto shrugged and said, "Maybe." As he laid back, Tenten laid beside him on his shoulder and she said, "Relax. I'm tired from walking across the desert and want to sleep a little bit, and I don't want to lay beside the pervert or the sandame. Both are perverts." Naruto said, "And you think I'm not?" Tenten said, "You tried to be a gentleman. Everyone's at least a little perverted. That's how we get children." Naruto said, "True. Let's get some rest." Tenten only nods her head and both lay there asleep within moments. When Jiraiya and the sandame got back, Jiraiya gave a perverted giggle as he scribbled on his notebook and Naruto said, without opening his eyes, "Writing about your teacher-student dreams with GG Ero Sanin," causing Tenten to stir. Jiraiya frowned and said, "No Gaki. Writing about you and the future Mrs. Uzumaki. It might be as good as the time I wrote about your mom and dad's honeymoon." Naruto growled and said, "Nothing happened, pervert. Tenten and I don't trust a pervert, so we decided you could sleep with Gigi. Neither of us are perverts, so you better not ruin Tenten's reputation by placing her in any of your books. As for my parents, I will let Tsunade know what you're writing about me and Tenten." Jiraiya paled and put his notebook away and the sandame said, "As amusing as this is, I guess it couldn't be helped for now. I assume you and Tenten must have shared the shower. All of us but Tenten could have gotten by the shower sensor since we all know a physical bunshin technique." Tenten said, "Wait. You mean a physical bunshin would trick the seal in the shower?" As she got a little red-faced. The sandame said, "Yes. It's made where civilians won't waste water in the motels, but since ninja are important for the survival of this village, they made it where ninja can bypass the seal with any bunshin jutsu other than the regular bunshin." Naruto saw several bags of takeout on the table and walked over and looked in them and said, "No ramen." Jiraiya said, "Water is too important here to use it to steam noodles for ramen." Naruto nods and he took a plate and opened it and said, "What is this? I never seen it before." Tenten grabbed her plate and saw it was the same as Naruto and said, "I haven't either. What is it if you don't mind?" The sandame said, "A local favorite of the people of Suna. It's called Suna Delight. I don't know what is all in it, but it is one of 3 dishes Suna is famous for. Try it, it's quite good." Naruto took his chopsticks and took a bite and said, Not bad. Could use a little chicken broth, but it's good." As he began to eat slowly, much to the shock of the sandame. Tenten also began to eat and said, "It's quite good actually." After they finished eating, the sandame asked, "So have you thought about your fight, Naruto?" Naruto frowned and Tenten thought, damn it. He was finally relaxed for his fight. And Naruto said, "A little. I won't know what I am going to do until I actually fight him though." The sandame said, "Have you at least thought about what you might do?" Naruto looked at him and said, "Depends." Jiraiya asked, "Depends on what Gaki?" Naruto looked at him and said, "The suit's at 97% right now. I got flight and both my primary weapons are back up and running, but I still have a little structure damage around the stomach area, so it can't take as much damage as the rest of the area. My chakra is back to 100% and my inventory of senbon needles for the senbon launcher has 379 senbons and my coat has around 60 shurikens and kunyas I can use. I can't use the hidden mist jutsu since there's no water, so I can't hide like I did against Gaara. I got Cage Bunshin, Rasengan, Rasen Shuriken, Henge, Replacement, Bunshin, and my Chakra Saber and Chakra Scythe. That's my inventory, so I need to wait and see who this guy is and what he can do before I can fight him, because everything I can do is basically a chakra eater." The sandame said, "Yes, besides the basic 3, all of your skills are a rank or higher. We will have to fix that later. What about you, Tenten? Even though Temari is going to throw the match, she can't make it look like she is." Tenten said, "Actually, Kakashi-sensei showed me a jutsu that will help me defeat her while I was with Team 7. Naruto bit his lip and Jiraiya and the sandame both looked at him and Jiraiya asked, "What is the jutsu if you don't mind me asking?" Tenten said, "Headhunter no jutsu. It will allow me to go underground and her wind attacks can't get to me, so I can use another skill I've been working on." Naruto said, "That's good, Tenten. I'm glad Kakashi could help you. As he got up and looked out the window, Tenten frowned and asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Naruto sighed and said, "No, Tenten. It has nothing to do with you. It just you proved that Kakashi didn't give a shit about me is all. In the 6 months I was his student, all he ever taught me was tree walking." Tenten's eyes got wide and she looked at the two adults who nodded sadly and she said, "Oh." As she looked down, Naruto looked at the sun and said, "It's almost time." The Sandaime said, "Yes. We should head to the stadium where the battle is to take place. Are you both ready?" Naruto said, "As ready as I am ever going to be, I guess." As he turned back from the window, Tenten grabbed her scrolls and said, "I guess I am as well." Jiraiya said, "Good. Let's go." As he led them out of the room. When they got to the stadium, the sound of a crowd was heard from the outside and Naruto walked toward the tunnel, and a Chunin stepped in front of Naruto and asked, "Are you the son of the Yondaime?" Naruto looked at the Sandaime with a deadpan expression and the Sandaime said, "Yes. This is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze." The Chunin said, "Then you may proceed through the tunnel ahead. The rest of you will have to go to the audience seats to your left and you Hokage-sama may take the stairs to the right to the Kage booth." The Sandaime said, "Thank you, Jiraiya. Go with Tenten, please." Jiraiya nods and Tenten said, "Good luck, Naruto." Naruto said, "Thanks," as he began to walk into the tunnel. When Naruto walked out of the tunnel and into the Sunachunin Stadium, he thought, well, this is different. As he looked across the field, seeing the field was nothing but sand, and saw a black-haired boy with a leaf headband and wearing a black pair of pants and a black shirt with a scroll on his hip and a sword across his back with the handle off his shoulder. Naruto frowned and thought, Kenjutsu user. The scroll might contain weapons or other items. Maybe a summoning contract like Kakashi used against Zabuza. And walked till he was 30 feet away from the teen and said, "Hi." The teen looked at Naruto and put on a smile and Naruto thought, fake. And the teen said, "Hi, my name is Sai, your Naruto Uzumaki, the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, correct?" The Sandaime glared at the boy and several people gasped in the crowd. Naruto said, "Yes." Sai said, "I did not know you were the son of the Yondaime Dickless." Naruto clenched his fist and Eva said in his head, "Don't lose your temper." Naruto calmed down and looked around the clearing and Baki appeared and said, "Enough of this. Now the reason for this is because of a dispute over the right to marry the daughter of the late Kazekage. Both individuals here have a claim to her, and so to settle it in the traditions of Suna they shall fight until one gives up, is unable to continue or dies. You may not use the audience or the village in this fight, but anything else is allowed. Do you both understand?" Both nod and Baki said, "Good. You may begin." As he shined away, Sai pulled his scroll from his side and a brush and quickly drew a picture and muttered something as a tiger made out of ink jumped off of the scroll and charged at Naruto. Naruto saw this and raised his right arm and fired a senbon at the tiger, and it exploded, sending ink all across the area and causing a large amount of sand to fly into the air. Naruto thought, Eva, heat signature, track him. As his vision went to purple and he saw Sai create began to fly on something cold while something cold stay on the ground in the cover created by the sand. Naruto seeing this took that moment to put his hands together and thought, Kagebunshin no Jutsu. As two Kagebunshin appeared and one hinged into a demon windmill shuriken and the other Kagebunshin grabbed it and then changed into a demon windmill shuriken, and the real Naruto grabbed it and jumped into the air and said, "Demon windmill shuriken, windmill of shadows, how about this?" As he threw the windmill shuriken at Sai, who was flying on a huge ink falcon. The falcon turned and avoided the shuriken, and once it passed the falcon the Kagebunshin released the henge and said, "Try this." As he tossed the windmill shuriken at the falcon and Sai, who turned to the right to avoid the shuriken, and once it passed it released the henge, turning back into Naruto, and both Kagebunshin started gathering chakra in their hands and formed a pair of Rasen shuriken and threw them at Sai, who rolled to the left, and when they threw the second set in the middle of his roll, Sai had to jump off the falcon that was destroyed by the Rasen shuriken, and the clones had already started forming another set to throw at Sai, who quickly drew another falcon and two small sparrows that flew at the Kagebunshin and destroyed them. Down on the arena floor, 10 Senbon needles exploded near the ink clone, destroying it, and Naruto looked at Sai up in the air and thought, "Looks like an air battle," as he jumped off the ground and began to fly towards Sai. Sai twisted the falcon in a dive while drawing again as a tiger jumped from his scroll at Naruto, who fired a Senbon needle at the tiger, and it exploded on contact, and he launched 10 more at Sai, who used his falcon to take the explosion as he jumped off and landed on Naruto back. Reaching for his sword, he began to draw it, when Naruto placed his hands together and said, "Kagebunshin no Jutsu," and 5 Kagebunshin grabbed Sai, stopping him from drawing his sword, and Naruto thought, "What now?" As Sai was still holding on with chakra on his feet and Naruto couldn't shake him while his cage bunshin stopped him from escaping. Just then one of the cage bunshin exploded followed by two more and Naruto thought quickly and started to fly straight up as fast as possible while spinning in a circle. Sai began to get sick and he lost his concentration and began to fall while Naruto stopped his climb and Sai began to draw again and another falcon appeared. Naruto looked at his power level and saw he was down to 30% and thought, shit. Eva, any ideas because I'm out? Eva said, I might have an idea but I don't know if it will work. Ink has water in it and as much ink as he is using then. Naruto thought it's worth a shot. As he saw all the ink on the ground and he quickly began to fly down toward the ink while Sai remained in the air. When Naruto landed he flashed through hand seals and said, Hidden Mist no Jutsu. As he concentrated and to his surprise the water separated from the ink. Up in the sky the ink that created Sai Falcon separated also as it joined the water in the air and Sai screamed as his ride fell from him into the mist in the arena. Up in the stands everyone was shocked at the display of skills that was being used by both teams. Jiraiya smirked as he saw Sai fall and said, Looks like Naruto just shut down Sai's main fighting ability. Tenten said, Yeah, but how did he know that would work? Jiraiya said, I don't know. Even I would never have tried that. Down in the arena floor Sai looked around when he heard 8 points larynx, spine, lungs, liver, jacular, saccline artery, kidneys, heart. Now which one should I attack? Coming from different places in the mist and all unleashing a little ki. Sai remained calm and silent as he reached for his sword and suddenly two Naruto came baseball sliding and said, Uz. As they kicked him in the stomach as two more kicked him in the chin sending him into the air ma. As one spring boarded off of the clones on the ground kicking Sai in the stomach again ki. A clone jumped behind him and wrapped his arms around Sai and said, Naruto. Leaning him back as the real Naruto flew up with a Rasengan in his hand screaming Rasengan Rendan. Shoving it into Sai's chest and sending him back into the mist that was dissolving. Naruto landed panting a little and the mist cleared and he frowned as he saw Sai turn into mud and Sai burst from the ground in front of Naruto and went to slash Naruto in the head when Naruto used his left arm to block the blade and a clang sound was heard and Naruto was looking down as the cloak dropped off his arm and began to spread across his entire body revealing his armor shocking nearly everyone. Sai saw this and jumped back as Naruto attempted to kick him and said, I have no information on this. Naruto looked up and said, What do you mean? You're saying you had information on the rest of my abilities. Sai said, Yes. When you battled Kisame in Wave Country someone was watching the battle who informed Danzo of everything you did against him. The Sandaime looked at Danzo who was frowning at Sai and Naruto said, Really? Then why didn't this person help Tenten and me fight Kisame then if he or she was there? Sai said, Acting against the orders of a superior is against the rules. The agent was told to follow and observe your party. Naruto asked, And what are your orders then? Why are you interested in Temari? Sai said, I do not care about the Kazekage daughter. Danzo-sama wishes for her so he has ordered me to kill you and marry her. She will then join Root and follow Danzo-sama orders. Naruto snorts and said, You don't know Temari then. She's too independent to follow some senile old crippled, who got injured jacking off so much, he went blind in one eye and wore his arm out so much that it had to be removed. Several people snickered and Danzo growled and Sai said, You should know your place as a tool of the Hidden Leaf Village and follow the orders of Danzo-sama. Naruto shook his head and said loudly, Gigi. Whatever headaches I caused you when I was younger, I'm sorry. You were right to try and protect me from idiots like Danzo if this is what he does to his own son. I hate to see what he does to others that he has control over. No matter, I grow bored of these talks. As another Naruto grabbed Sai's feet and pulled him into the ground but Sai replaced himself with Naruto and pulled his sword and said, I knew your clone was digging under the ground the entire time. I waited until you pulled me under so I could trap you. Now I must carry out my orders. As he went to strike Naruto but was blocked by Tenten who had a chakra saber in her hand. Sai jumped back when Uchiha Itachi appeared. Sai jumped back again as Kisame who appeared took a swing at his head but Sai was too slow and the sword passed right through Sai dissolving into particles and Sai asked what? As he was forced to jump away from a chakra saber from Naruto as Tenten, Itachi, and Kisame all dissolved into particle. Naruto said, You talk too much. As he took a stance he learned from Yugogo. Sai said, Genjutsu. I was informed you were unable to perform Genjutsu. Naruto remained silent and Sai went to strike at Naruto but was blocked and blocked again when he went to reverse the blade strike, and Sai kept trying to slice at Naruto who was blocking each strike, but as Sai got faster Naruto was being pushed back and Naruto soon found himself back against the walls, and Sai went to strike, did a sword reversal that caused Naruto to lose the chakra saber, and Sai went to cut Naruto head off when Naruto fired a Senbon needle with his now free hand, and he hit Sai in leg and exploded, blowing his leg from the thigh off as well as his manhood. Sai screamed as he was rolling on the ground from the pain of losing his limb, and Naruto grabbed Sai's sword and walked over and raised the sword above his head and looked at Sai and brought it down, and it entered the ground beside Sai's head, and Naruto said, "I can't kill a fellow leaf shinobi. Call the match and get him to a doctor. His ninja life is over, but he can still live." As he turned and walked over and grabbed his chakra saber and sealed it before he looked one more time at Sai, who was still screaming, and walked away. The people cheered as Naruto walked over to the wall, and some ninja grabbed Sai and shined away to the hospital, and Gaara appeared in the stadium and said, "The winner is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze and has won the right to marry my sister Temari. Does anyone wish to contest this marriage?" As he looked at Tenten for a moment, Tenten stood up and said, "Yeah, I do. I contest Temari being the one to marry him when I want to marry him." Gaara said, "Very well. Then like Naruto you must fight my sister for the right to marry him." Tenten said, "Gladly." As she began to walk down toward the arena, Danzo stood up and said, "Pardon me, Kazekage-sama, but I believe that it would be a waste of everyone's time to have this next match when a simpler solution has presented itself." The Sandaime shined next to Gaara and asked, "What are you getting at, Danzo? You have no right to interfere in Suna diplomacy." Danzo said, "That's true, but the Namikaze family is a Konoha family, and that means that this would fall under Konoha jurisdiction. As such, I feel since he is the last Namikaze and because of his gifts rewarded to him from being the Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, that it may be a new bloodline appearing, and if it is, then he would have the right to form his own clan. The daughter of the late Kazekage would be a welcome addition to Konoha to help ensure the future of the new possible bloodline and his family future, as would the young lady who already stated she wishes to marry him. Instead of having them fight, it would be in everyone's interest to have him start his own harem. That way Suna would be honoring their agreement to a wedding to a Konoha ninja, and also a chance to cement the interest of the Namikaze clan to the people of Konoha, so they won't be afraid to lose the Namikaze clan to Suna in the future. Unless there is a reason for both ladies to fight that we are unaware of, I don't see a reason for them to fight, and I know the Council of Konoha would agree with me even though I am no longer a member of the council." The Sandaime frowned, and Gaara looked at both Temari and Tenten, who were looking shocked, and over at Naruto, who had returned to looking normal and did not look happy, and said, "I cannot speak for the people of Konoha. Suna will not be making the mistakes that we made in the past by dishonoring ourselves to our allies with some underhanded trick or political manipulation. I only stated using the same law that required Naruto and Sai to fight earlier, since it was my belief the situation was the same as the one we just got out of. What is Konoha standing on this matter, Hokage-san?" The Sandaime said, "Danzo does bring up a good point, but I never did like the idea of forcing people to marry unless they wanted to, so I will offer both ladies a chance to back out of this if they do not want to marry Naruto." Tenten thought, "Shit, this isn't good. If I back out now, then people will know something was up and it could cause us to go back to war with Suna. I'm stuck, but Temari can be freed at least." Temari thought, "Not good. If I back out, it will make it look like Suna is trying to back out of the deal and Panda is stuck in this deal, because if she backs out, then people will know the fight was planned. She did it to free me and Naruto, so the least I can do is honor her and Naruto for what they tried to do." Tenten said, "I still want to marry him." Temari said, "So do I," making Tenten wide-eyed. The Sandaime began to whisper something only Gaara could hear. Naruto thought, "I guess you were right, Eva. Tenten was stuck because of not being able to back out, but I was surprised Temari didn't back out. I wonder why." Eva said, "Most likely honor for what you and Tenten were willing to do for her." Naruto sighed and said, "So be it." As he pushed off the wall and walked over and said, "So when is this wedding going to be, GG, brother?" Gaara said, "It was originally planned for this afternoon, but the Sandaime has informed me that Tenten's father is still in Konoha, and it would be dishonoring to him to have his only child wedding without informing him and allowing Naruto a chance to prepare his home for a clan. For this reason, the wedding will be here at the end of the Chunin exams in 5 months. That will give all the VIPs as well as all the family and friends who wish to see the wedding to come to it and not have to schedule a trip into their already busy schedule. It will also give us a chance to demonstrate our loyalty to our allies in the Leaf Village, but also to our enemies, that we are strong and united. The Sand Village will show why it is one of the 5 great villages. This I promise to you as the Godame Kazekage, that I will show our strength to the world and protect it and our allies, so that the mistakes of the past will never happen again and that we will never fall." The people began to cheer and Naruto walked over and bowed slightly to Gaara and Gaara placed his hand on Naruto's shoulder and said, "Never bow to me, brother." As he held out his hand and Naruto grasped it and the Sandaime nods. Up in the stand Danzo glared at this and quickly left. Tenten saw Temari had a tear fall and she asked, "Why are you crying?" Temari said, "He's amazing." Tenten said, "Yeah, I guess your brother will make a great Kazekage." Temari chuckled and said, "I was talking about our fiancé. He did something I thought was impossible and changed Gaara from a person who believed his only reason to live was to kill to someone who wants to protect. I actually can touch my baby brother now. I have never been able to do that. You don't know how much that means to me. I would marry Naruto just for that reason alone. Forget what you and him tried to do for me." Tenten looked at Naruto who was smiling a real smile as he shook hands with Gaara and said, "He's unique. He's willing to sacrifice everything to make people happy. He may not have been what I was expecting as a husband at first, but I think I could grow to love him. Especially with those back rubs." Temari blinked and asked, "What back rubs, Panda?" Tenten smiled evilly and said, "Nothing, sandwich." Temari growled and said, "I think it's time I showed you who's the first wife going to be here, Panda-chan." As she grabbed her fan. Tenten grabbed her scrolls and said, "Bring it, sandwich." Before either girl knew it, both were in a kiss from Naruto Kagebunshin while the real one was standing with the two Kage. When the Kagebunshin stopped kissing the girls they said, "Behave and I might give both of you a back rub that Tenten was talking about, but only good girls get them." Before both went up in smoke. Tenten looked at Temari who nods and both walked over and hit Naruto upside the head and he said, "Damn it, you're both worse than fangirls." Only to be knocked out by both girls who stomped away. Jiraiya, who was scribbling in his notebook, said, "You have much to learn, my apprentice." It had been nearly 2 days since the fight with Sai and Suna. Naruto slowly opened his eyes and looked around the room and saw Tenten asleep beside him with her head on his shoulder. Jiraiya and the Sandaime were both on a twin-size bed, each asleep. Naruto looked outside and saw it was dark and he replaced himself with a pillow on the floor and Tenten shifted, pulling the pillow closer and Naruto went toward the bathroom and after taking a shower with a Kagebunshin he got dressed and came out to find everyone was still asleep. He then sneaked out of the hotel room and went to the roof and sat down on the ledge on the roof. About an hour later he said, "Hello, Gaara." Gaara stepped out of the shadows and walked over and sat down beside Naruto and said, "Hello, Naruto." Both remained silent for several minutes and Naruto said, "Couldn't sleep." Gaara said, "It's hard sometimes. I'm used to never sleeping, so I am having to force myself to sleep when I do now." Naruto nods and said, "I know I've been out nearly 2 days. Anything happen I need to know about?" Gaara rubbed his forehead and said, "Temari will be staying in Suna until the wedding. The Sandaime has given me the Kagebunshin no jutsu to learn providing I don't teach it to anyone else, which I agreed to." Naruto nods and Gaara pulled out a scroll and held it out and he said, "Inside the scroll is most of Suna wind jutsu. Consider it a dowry for my sister. With you and her both being wind users, the chance your children will be is nearly guaranteed." Naruto took the scroll and thought, "Eva, can you copy this scroll and show it to me when I ask for it?" Eva said, "Yes." Naruto opened the scroll and when Eva said finish, Naruto held it to Gaara and said, "The armor I wear has a way of recording anything and everything around me. I recorded the scroll so I can read it later. Let Temari keep the original hard copy, so that way no one can steal it while I am away on missions." Gaara took the scroll and said, "Very well." Both remained silent and Naruto asked, "What does Temari think of this though? I know Tenten was stuck at the stadium, so what does Temari think since she agreed?" Gaara picked up a stone and tossed it off the roof and said, "She claims she wishes to marry you for what you done for me as well as what you and Tenten tried to do for her. Kankuro and I are saddened by losing her, but we also gained 2 new siblings." Naruto sighed and said, "Jinchurikis? I hate that word with a passion, but we are what we are. We are sacrifices that have to do what has to be done so others may remain human. You were created to be the weapon of your village to protect it. You have become the Kazekage to complete that goal. I was chosen to save my village and I have become Iron Man to complete that goal. Both of us have found new ways to do what we were created for and yet," Gaara said, "and yet we continue the same path that was laid out before us at the beginning." Naruto nods and said, "I'll take care of her, Gaara, and try to make her happy." Gaara said, "I know. You are different than me. You're able to bring happiness to others. I hope that I can follow in your steps, my brother." Naruto saw the sun beginning to rise and said, "You already are Gaara. The people of Suna cheered for you and have began to respect you. Show them why they are right to do so, and you will have the same ability as I do." Gaara smiled a small smile and said, "Look at us, a couple of teens acting like old men." Naruto sighed and said, "There are times I feel old, Gaara. That is why I try to act happy." Gaara said, "I know. Because of the darkness we live in, we have aged in our minds faster than our bodies." Naruto stood up and stretched his muscles and said, "I need to go see the others so we can leave before it becomes too hot to travel. I wish you luck, Kazekage." Holding out his hand, Gaara took the hand and said, "I await the day to congratulate you, Hokage." With a small smile, Naruto nods and Gaara left in a swirl of sand while Naruto walked back to his hotel room. When he got there, he saw the others were awake and Tenten asked, "Where did you go?" The Sandaime said, "The highest place he could get so he could watch the sunrise, right?" Naruto said, "Yeah. Old habits die hard. I always like to watch the sunrise and set if I can." Tenten said, "Really? I never expected you to be a sun watcher." Naruto shrugged and said, "It's nothing really. So Gaara told me already that Temari's staying here until the wedding. Anything else I need to know?" The Sandaime said, "Tenten, Jiraiya, leave us a moment please." Tenten frowned and Jiraiya placed his hands on her shoulder and said, "Come on, let's give them time to talk," as he pushed her out of the room and closed the door behind them. After they were gone, Naruto crossed his arms and the Sandaime said, "I told you to kill him." Naruto said, "And I said I won't kill a Konoha ninja. I ended his ninja career and his ability to ever have children. That should be more than enough." With a glare, the Sandaime sighed and said, "The hospital sent me a message that Danzo had Sai killed and his body placed in a storage scroll. All you accomplished was making him suffer at the end." Naruto frowned and said, "No, I also saved myself. Killing to save people is one thing I will do. Killing because of a threat someone might become to me is another. If I killed him, then I would be no better than the council and the villagers who wanted me dead because of what Kyuubi might do. I won't go down to that level." The Sandaime looked at Naruto a moment and smiled and said, "Wise choice." Naruto blinked and asked, "What?" The Sandaime said, "With everything that has been happening to you since you became a ninja, I had to test you and see if you were still the same boy I think of as my grandson, or if you were going down the same road many ninja fall down that turns them into things that are barely human. I am sorry for ordering you to kill Sai, but it was the only way I could see if you were still you." Naruto frowned and said, "So you used me?" The Sandaime sighed and said, "No. You've grown, Naruto, very quickly in fact, and I missed it where you grew. Before the Chunin exams, I still saw you as the little boy who would ask to wear my hat and to take him out for ramen. I've done several things in trying to protect you that I am not proud of. Hiding your parents, the Kyuubi, and your treatment are among the ones I regret the most. I often wished I could have taken your dad's place and performed the sealing myself so you would have him in your life, but like you, he was too noble." Naruto sat down on the bed and said, I hated you when I learned the truth about my parents like I hated you for Kyuubi. I questioned if you really cared for me or if you were only nice to me to lower my guard so you could someday kill me. If it wasn't for Eva, I might have become like Gaara was. She helped me deal with all my hate and made me realize that you did what you did to protect me because you cared for me. I know I was a headache at times, and there were times I must have broke your heart with the suffering I went through. But I want you to know that you are just as much a grandfather to me as you are to Konohamaru." Sarutobi sat down beside Naruto and said, "I made the same mistake with you as I did with my own son Asuma. I let my duties to the village rule my duties to family. For me and Asuma is formed a gap that will never be filled, but over time we have built a bridge. A gap has formed between you and I as well, but I hope we can either fill it back in or form a bridge." Naruto laid back on the bed and was silent a moment and said, "Mint and cloves." The Sandaime smiled and pulled out his pipe and lighted it, and Naruto closed his eyes and said, "Only 3 things have ever made me feel at peace in my life. Ramen, watching the sun rise or set, and your pipe. It reminds me of when you held me in your arms as a small boy and would read me stories or let me pick out which team would have to chase Tora." The Sandaime said, "Or the time-stamped that mission and S-rank mission." Naruto chuckled a few moments and looked at the ceiling and said, "Nearly all my secrets are out now. If it wasn't for my luck, I would have lost that match to Sai. He had me with that ink." Sarutobi said, "I know. You've always been lucky." Naruto sighed and said, "But not this time. Temari and Tenten. I don't know what to do. None of us love each other. Tenten becoming my closest friend in the short time we've been together, and I feel I can trust her, but trust and love are not the same thing. Sarutobi sighed and said, but there is nothing we can do. We played all our cards and now it's time to see who is going to win. Both girls have feelings for you, Naruto. Temari has her gratitude for helping her brother when no one else would, and Tenten got a connection to you that I don't know, but she willing to put her heart into this. Naruto frowned and said, why can't things be simple? I have a friend in Konoha who is probably going to hate me because of Temari, then Dustin is going to kill me for getting his daughter involved in this whole mess. Plus I have to figure out what to do about everyone knowing about dad and mom, and people now know about Eva to an extent. I used everything I knew in that battle, Gigi. I don't know if I should be a Chunin with as sorry as my skills are now. The Sandaime placed his hands on Naruto's shoulder and said, you are more than Chunin, Naruto. That match was an ANBU level fight. I honestly had no idea you were that good. You're right though, your skills are low for what you must face. Your enemies grow in numbers every day. I received a message from Konoha while you were asleep. Orochimaru has placed a bounty on your head. He knows about Iron Man and you being one in the same. Then you have Akatsuki after you, and now that your family name is out you will gain your parents' enemies both in and outside of Konoha. Naruto looked down and asked, what should I do then? The Sandaime said, know your enemy and know yourself. Find not in fear for 100 battles. Know yourself but not your enemy. Find level of loss and victory. Know thy enemy but not yourself. Wallow in defeat every time. Naruto blinked and said, that's some more of the heaven and earth thing, isn't it? Sarutobi nods and said, yes, you know what skills you have and you know who some of your enemies are. Learn about them from wherever you can so you can prepare for them while you prepare yourself as well. You have 4 sources of information of Orochimaru at your disposal: Jiraiya, Tsunade, myself, and Enko. We all have a connection to Orochimaru. Learn what we know of him and you will be better prepared when you face him again. You know Kisame and Itachi. Read the bingo book on them and learn from those who can fight them. For Itachi you have the perfect sensei already in Guy who has made a career out of defeating the Sharingan. For Kisame learn more Kenjutsu and water and wind jutsu. Naruto asked, what about my other enemies? Sarutobi touched his forehead and said, focus on the ones you know and worry about the ones you don't later. With time comes age and with age comes experience. When you can defeat the 3 you know, the 100 you don't will be easier to prepare for. Naruto nods and said, thanks Gigi. The Sandaime said, that's what I am here for, grandson. Well, I think it's time we should get ready to leave. Naruto said, yeah, I want to get across the desert before the afternoon heat hits. The Sandaime said, I agree, my bones are not as young as they used to be. Naruto said, yeah, 300 years ago. As he laughed and ran to the door only to be hit on the head by the Sandaime who appeared in front of him and said, I may be old but I can still bend you over my knee. Naruto laughed and opened the door and saw Jiraiya and Tenten leaning against the far wall of the hall, and he asked, so are you both ready? Tenten nods and Jiraiya said, we've been ready since yesterday, Gaki. Why did you sleep so late anyways? Naruto shrugged and said, I had 6% chakra left after the fight with Sai. I should have been back at 100% yesterday but for some reason wasn't. Anyways, let's go. Coming, Gigi? The Sandaime said, yes. As he stepped out of the hotel room and the group made it out of the hotel and a few people bowed to them, and soon they made it to the gates and saw the Sand Sibs standing there, and Gaara walked forward and said, I wish you safe journey and good luck. As he bowed slightly toward the group before shaking hands with Naruto. The Sandaime said, and I wish you a wise and noble rule of your village, Kazekage-san. As he bowed slightly. Kankuro walked over and looked at Naruto in the eyes and asked, what was that armor? Naruto said, it's Iron Man and that is all I will say, makeup boy. Kankuro said, it's war paint. You better be good enough for my sister. Naruto said, I'm not. As he walked over to Temari who was looking at him. Temari said, I guess that we are officially engaged. Naruto said, seems that way. Temari looked at Tenten and said, you going to break him in for me, Panda-chan? Tenten shot her a glare and Temari said, both of you take care. I've always knew I would be in a political marriage, so I'm not surprised about it. I am surprised that I get to sleep with my husband's mistress though. Tenten growled and said, I am not the mistress sandwich, you are. Temari said, whatever floats your boat, Panda-chan. Naruto slapped his head and said, damn fangirls. Earning him a lump on the head from both girls who smiled, and Temari said, well, I guess this is goodbye. as she leaned forward and kissed Naruto on the cheek and began to walk away. Jiraiya and the Sandaime both began to walk away as well, and Tenten was glaring at Temari when Naruto touched her arm and said, "Come on," as they began to walk away. After they were gone, Temari sighed and Gaara placed his hands on her shoulder and said, "He will make a good husband for you and her a good sister." Temari said, "I know. I just wish we could have known each other longer before the wedding and had met under better conditions. I may never tell her, but I respect Tenten more than any other Konoha kunoichi. Naruto is also cute and I can relate to him." Gaara said, "Yes, I like my future brother and sister, and will kill any who harm them, or you both." As he looked at his sibs, Kankuro said, "Hey, we're not defenseless, you know. We can take care of ourselves." Gaara said, "I know. But beating your meat is not as good as beating an enemy." Temari burst out laughing and Kankuro said, "Bro, that was low." Gaara pulled out a copy of Ika Paradise and said, Actually according to this being low would be sending you on a mission to seduce Chio." Kankuro paled and Temari, who was red seeing the book, burst out laughing again, and the book fell to the ground and showed another book inside that said, 10,000 Ways to Insult People as Jokes. As he read it, Kankuro asked, "Where did you get that book, Gaara?" Gaara said, "It was in the stadium after Naruto beat Sai. I figured nobody wanted it. Well, I got work to do." As he shoo-shin away, Temari picked up the Ika Paradise and Kankuro said, "Hey, that's volume 14. I've been waiting for it to come out." Temari looked up and said, "Get your own." As she walked away reading it, Kankuro thought, "Nah, I'll just wait to borrow it from your collection." As he went to buy some more face paint, the group traveled in silence across the desert and reached the border town they stayed in before by 2 in the afternoon. As they entered the town, Naruto stretched and yawned and said, "So what now?" Tenten asked, "Are you really that tired? You've been yawning almost ever since we left Suna." Naruto rubbed his head and said, "I don't know what's wrong. I just feel tired and bored." Tenten shook her head and said, "Whatever." The Sandaime said, "We are going to stop and eat lunch before heading on our way back to Konoha. We can stop before dark to set up camp and be back in the village by noon tomorrow." Naruto nods and reached for his arm, and out popped his frog wallet, and he frowned as he looked in it and said, "Nothing too expensive, please. I spent most of my money." Jiraiya said, "Don't worry about it, Gaki. I'm paying this time for all of us." Naruto looked around and frowned a moment and said, "Don't even think it, Ero-sanin. I won't let Tenten be dragged to that kind of place." Tenten blinked and asked, "What are you talking about, Naruto?" As she looked at Naruto, who was glaring at Jiraiya, Naruto said, "Look around you and tell me what district in this town are we in." Tenten blinked and looked around a few moments, and her eyes went wide and said, "Oh." Sarutobi chuckled as Jiraiya frowned, and he said, "Looks like the student surpassed the master this time, Jiraiya." Jiraiya said, "Fine, but we're going to a cheap stand instead of a restaurant, Gaki." As he led them away from the red light district, they soon were in a booth at the back of a local stand that was empty besides the guy at the counter 30 feet away, with Naruto sitting beside Tenten, and Jiraiya and Sarutobi both were drinking a little sake and eating several slices of beef, and Tenten slowly ate her stir-fry chicken. Naruto ate some turkey and he took a sip of water and said, "Jiraiya-sensei," making everyone at the table look at him. Jiraiya said, "What, Gaki?" in a serious voice. Naruto said, "I got a couple of questions about sealing I was hoping you might be able to answer." Jiraiya chuckled and said, "Really? Do tell what the great Jiraiya can answer for you." Naruto frowned and said, "Can't you be serious just once, pervert?" Sarutobi said, "I am afraid this is serious for him, Naruto." Naruto sighed and said, "Fine. I was wondering if it's possible to store chakra itself in a seal engraved on an object, and if so, does it get weaker over time if not being used?" Jiraiya blinked a moment and said, "A seal, no matter if it is engraved on something or drawn on an object, holds whatever is stored in it until the seal is destroyed or the item is removed from the seal. The only difference is if a seal is engraved in something, then there has to be blood in the grooves of the seal as a medium." "Why do you ask?" Naruto bit his lip and said, "You all remember when I was fighting Sai and a clone of Tenten appeared and stopped his blade?" Everyone nods, slowly looking at him, and Naruto said, "Well, that clone was created by Eva using my chakra, because my hands were stuck underground and I could not form any seals myself." Sarutobi asked, "How was she able to do that, Naruto?" Looking interested, Naruto said, thanks to how we broke the Rasengan down so I could learn it so quick Eva and I learned to read chakra flow and chakra patterns instead of levels. We've bounced a couple of ideas off each other about using this to help me train, which is how I was able to learn that sand walking so easily without any instructions. I just had to mold my chakra to mimic the sand needs and after a few tries I got it. Since she records everything around me including my own body, she has recorded the way my body molds chakra to make a Kage-bunshin as well as my sexy no jutsu. She combined them quickly and had the chakra manifest itself in front of me to stop that attack. It wasn't stable since I was so low on chakra, but it was enough for that moment. Tenten said, so Eva molded your chakra to form that clone. Naruto said, yeah. Jiraiya asked, what does that have to do with what you were asking about the seal? Naruto said, remember when I had some of my Kage-bunshin transform into the demon windmill shurikens? Well, I knew that would work because I transformed myself into them before to save Kakashi life from Zabuza when he trapped Kakashi in a water prison. Thanks to using that strategy as well as what Eva did, we think we might have a new jutsu or attack for me to use. Actually several if it works. As he rubbed his temples with his hands while he closed his eyes. Sarutobi said, if what works Naruto? Watching Naruto actions. Naruto said, well, since I can changed into a windmill shuriken, I think my Kage-bunshin might be able to transform into other objects like say a senbon needle. I could then load a henge senbon into my launcher and shoot a clone at my enemy, and since my enemy thinks it's a senbon will move out of the way or get ready to deflect it. My Kage-bunshin can at the last second transform into its real self and surprise attack my enemies. Jiraiya said, that might work as long as nobody sees you make the Kage-bunshin and load it. Naruto said, yeah, that brings me back to the question I was asking. What if I were to say store some of my chakra ahead of time in a seal on something small like stone or something like that? Eva thinks she could repeat the process that she used to create the Kage-bunshin that she made against Sai without the sexy no jutsu this time by adding one of the nanites that make up the armor with only the instructions to mold the chakra for the jutsu, and since it's part of the armor, as long as it's in 100 yards of me, the nanites can receive orders from Eva to mold the chakra stored in the object into a clone and summon the clone at the location the stone is without draining my chakra levels because it would already have its own chakra to use. All three other members of the group were wide-eyed and Jiraiya said, that could actually work. Naruto winced as he holds the back of his head and said, that's what I am hoping, and if it works, it's just part of an idea we had came up with. What I am really hoping to do is be able to create a single clone that way but have it made like the clone I had fight Niji at the exams. That clone had enough chakra it could do my jutsu as well as power up the armor it was wearing. That could be a new form of bunshin. Making all of them gasp as they thought of that. The Sandaime thought a moment and said, okay, let's think about this for a second Naruto. That clone you made against Niji, how much chakra did it have? Naruto's shoulder twitched, making both Jiraiya and Sarutobi glance at each other as Naruto said, 50% of my total chakra at that time. My control has went up as well as my reserves since then. The Sandaime said, alright, so far that would be a standard Kage-bunshin then. Did you get the memories back from it? As he sees Naruto rub his shoulder that was twitching. Naruto nods and Sarutobi asked, since anything a person is holding or has on when they make a clone appears, the armor also appeared, and because of the armor it was able to withstand several strikes that could have destroyed it normally. After it absorbed so much chakra it became unstable and exploded right. Naruto said, yeah, but it also didn't use any jutsu. It could have if I would have known anything else besides henge, Kage-bunshin and replacement that could have been helpful against Niji. His bloodline made the hidden mist jutsu useless. The Sandaime nods and said, that's true, and besides the effect the armor gives you, everything is showing a regular Kage-bunshin. Now the creation process is different, but as Jiraiya can tell you, it's possible to seal a Kage-bunshin in a seal, and it can be released with the right trigger, but it's even more unstable than a regular Kage-bunshin because when it moves the first time it cancels. Now if your idea of how to activate the jutsu works, it won't weaken you, but the question of if you got its memories back or not is in question, and what effects it has on you mentally. How long would it take Eva to create the nanite for the seal Naruto? Eva told him the answer and Naruto said, 10 minutes after she scanned the seal, since it would actually be 13 nanites instead of 1. 1 control and 12 drone nanites. We would then have to charge it with some of my chakra to test it. The Sandaime looked at Jiraiya who said, I can probably have it ready this afternoon, but I would need some of his blood for it, and if it worked we would need to add his blood to the metal during tempering of whatever weapon he wanted it to be on. The Sandaime said, well, work on it, and if it works Naruto, then what are you going to call the new bunshin? Naruto thought a moment and said, Cho Fuin Bunshin. Tenten said, Super Seal Clone. I guess that would be right in a way and also hiding the truth about what is really going on. Naruto said, yeah. Eva and I were thinking if it works, I'm gonna get some of those mini shurikens that you have at your family shop and have the seal placed on them. Tenten thought a moment and said, but those things are only the size of a coin. Why those? Naruto said, because Eva can design a shoulder launcher like the Senbon launcher, and with a simply seal line off the network of seals I already have on my body, she can store the chakra in them while I rest or not needing my chakra at the time, and that way if I get in another situation where I can't make the hand signs for a cage bunshin, then I can fire one of those at an enemy, and they are so small that it would be hard to see them until it's too late and give me an advantage. At least that's the idea, I think. As he grabbed his head very quickly like he was hurting. Jiraiya frowned and said, Naruto, look at me. Naruto looked up and Jiraiya saw bloodshot eyes and his pupils were dilated. Jiraiya got up and raised Naruto's head and looked at his eyes and pulling Naruto's eyelids back a little, and he said, close your eyes until I tell you to stop, Naruto. As he began to flash through hand signs. Naruto began to mumble sluggishly and Tenten asked, what's wrong, Jiraiya-sama? Jiraiya's hand glowed green and he hovered it over Naruto's head and he frowned a moment and said, Sensei, we need to get him back to Konoha to Tsunade. I'm going to summon Gambunta to get us there. Sarutobi asked, what's wrong with Naruto? As he saw Naruto swaying from left to right. Jiraiya was silent a moment and said, I know what it is, but I don't know how he came into contact with it. Red spice. Sarutobi's eyes got wide and asked, are you sure, Jiraiya? Tenten, who had stood up and said in a demanding voice, will you both tell me what's going on? What's wrong with my fiancé? Sarutobi frowned and said, go, Jiraiya. I will take Tenten with me. Jiraiya knocked Naruto out with a chop to the back of his neck and picked him up over his shoulder and shoo-shined away. After they were gone, Sarutobi looked at Tenten, who was glaring at him, and he sighed before he said, red spice was originally a drug that was created by the Nara clan before they came to Konoha. Back then, from what I was told when they joined Konoha, that they created it because their clan had a problem with ADHD. They would jump into action without thinking or let their mind wander during combat, and it nearly destroyed their clan before they created that drug. After they created it, they were able to calm down and think clearly, but then they learned that it had a side effect. Their children would think clearly since they mixed it with their bottles when they are still infants, but then they would become lazy unless they had something to keep them motivated. They still use the drug, but under the watch of a trained medic. The Nara clan is known for their great minds, but thanks to the drug, they are also known for their great laziness. Tenten frowned and thought a moment, and then she said, so Naruto somehow got this red spice. Wait a minute. How long does it take this stuff to take effect? The Sandaime said, usually a few hours. Why? Tenten said, you told me that it was strange Naruto slept like he did in Suna after his fight with Sai, but I know for a fact that he wasn't like that until we got to Suna. The Sandaime thought about it a moment and said, that's true. He was yawning a lot on the way here like he was tired even after sleeping so long, but on the way to Suna, he didn't, which means he had to come into contact with it while in Suna. Tenten asked, what does red spice look like, and how does it get into the human body? Sarutobi frowned and said, as the name suggests, it's a red spice. Usually it is given with milk as an infant, but when it was created originally it was taken with food. Suna Delight. It was the only thing Naruto ate when we were in Suna. Damn it, this is my fault. I got that for him and you. I thought it was strange that vendor was near our hotel, but who would want to do that to Naruto and why? Tenten bit her lip and asked, are you sure the target was Naruto, and why am I not affected from it? Surely they couldn't have known which one he was going to take. The Sandaime said, yeah. It takes certain levels of adrenaline to activate the drug, and unless you, me, and Jiraiya were in life and death battles in the first 24 hours after taking it, then it wouldn't affect us. Infants have the necessary level of adrenaline when they are learning to crawl, which is why the Nara give it to them when they are so young. The question is who would gain the most from this and why? Tenten frowned and said, Danzo. He knew Naruto was going to fight Sai, so he arranged it for Naruto to get it while making sure that I stayed out of a fight that could have triggered the drug. Sarutobi frowned and said, maybe, but why would he want to give it to Naruto? It doesn't make any sense. It helped calm him down so he could think clearly, which is a good thing, and why he was able to come up with the idea for that Bunshin Jutsu. I don't see what Danzo could gain from giving it to Naruto, which is why I doubt it was Danzo, since he only does something if it aids him. If it's not him, then who? Tenten said, I don't know, but why was Naruto grabbing his head and swaying like that? Sarutobi blinked and said, it's a side effect of the drug. It fires more of the synapses in the brain, making you think clearer. Most people use one side of their brain more than the other. This drug makes it where you use both sides equally, so that means normally one side of the brain is weaker than the other, and like most muscles, the more you use it, the stronger it gets. While the drug is making the one that is weaker stronger, it causes pain and sometimes brain tumors and brain damage. That is why Naruto was in pain. That is another reason why the Nara clan does it while still infants. Infants don't use their brains much, so there is very little chance of danger to the child's health, though they are watched for the first week after they are given it to be safe. Tenten asked, "Will Tsunade-sama be able to help him?" With worry in her voice. Sarutobi said, "Yes, it will take about 5 days for the effects to stabilize and he will be in danger, but with a little care with medical chakra it takes the risk away." Tenten asked, "How can you be so calm about this? I feel like I am going to go crazy because I'm worried about him." The Sandame said, "Years of sending people to their deaths, Tenten. I am worried, but I have trained so long to hide my emotions." Tenten frowned and said, "Can we go? I want to check on him just in case." The Sandame said, "Very well, but I want you to think on the way back. Do you really wish to marry Naruto? If not, I can arrange it where everyone thinks that you only wanted to marry Naruto so you could compete against Temari to get revenge for losing to her during the exams." Tenten bit her lip and said, "Can you let me think about it? I need to talk to Naruto also before I can decide." Sarutobi said, "Very well." As he paid and they left. When Naruto awoke, he found himself in a white room and he blinked and looked around the room and saw there were several things that indicated the room was a hospital room, but his eyes stopped on the figure that was sitting in a chair in the corner and he said, "Hello, Weasel. I thought you died several years ago." With confusion on his face. The ANBU in a weasel mask looked at Naruto and said, "I was on a mission since then away from here, Naruto-kun. How are you feeling?" Naruto said, "Like my head is going to explode. What happened?" Weasel said, "Sorry about that. It's sort of my fault that happened." Naruto asked, "What happened and what do you mean it was your fault?" Weasel said, "I'm a deep cover spy for both Sandame-sama and Jiraiya-sama. Because of you my cover was blown, so I had to contact them and inform them about it, but the problem is that as part of my cover story I am listed as a missing nin. I couldn't just walk up to them in Suna. There is a drug called red spice that is used by a clan here in Konoha. Since it is a rare item, to get a hold of it was decided that it would be a way to set up a contact between me and them should something important come up. I had to hypnotize the food vendor that Sandame-sama and Jiraiya-sama got the food from to put the drug on top of the food because both would have instantly recognized it before eating it. Unfortunately, the food was for you, so you got the drug, and because of it you're in the hospital." Naruto heard Eva in his head and he said, "So you were a spy in Akatsuki?" Weasel stiffened and said, "Yes, though how did you know?" Naruto said, "Once Gigi or Ero-sanin confirm your story, then I will tell you. Sorry, but you have to understand." Weasel pulled his mask away and said, "Yes. They should be back shortly anyways." Naruto frowned as he asked Eva how long was he asleep, and he said, "So I have been here 2 weeks. Why was I here that long and why did I sleep that long?" A voice from the door said, "That would be because of me, Naruto." As he looked over and saw Tsunade coming in with Jiraiya and the Sandame. Sandame asked, "Why have you removed your mask, Itachi?" Itachi said, "He knew who I was already since he knew that I was a spy in Akatsuki." Jiraiya said, "Yeah, Eva has all kinds of ways of detecting who people are. Eva his armor. How you feeling, Gaki?" Naruto said, "Like my head is going to explode. What the hell did that drug do to me?" With a frown at Jiraiya for telling about Eva. Tsunade said, "It's a drug designed by the Nara clan for their safety. Normally the drug would make it where your brain gathers information easier and calms a person down with a minor side effect of headaches the first week they take it." Naruto said, "And what about me? I'm not exactly normal, am I?" Tsunade said, "In your case it was nearly fatal." Making Naruto eyes widen. Naruto asked in a quieter voice, "What do you mean fatal?" Tsunade said, "The drug forces the brain to release a chemical that calms a person down. From story sensei told me about how you were before you received Eva. You are how the Nara clan used to be, very hyperactive. The drug calms them down that much. Now the problem is your body is hyperactive for 2 reasons. One, because it is in your genes from your parents, and the second is Kyubi. His chakra increases your adrenaline to make you stronger and faster. Now the problem came up is that the chemical the drug release into your brain to calm you down was fighting against Kyubi chakra that was trying to heal you. Basically a war was going in your brain. Luckily the idiot over here knocked you out and brought you here quickly, and I checked you myself. I had to create an antidote for the drug that stopped it and kept you in a medical coma for all this time. Anyone else would have let the drug run its course, not realizing the Kyuubi chakra had an effect on it. Jiraiya and Eva both worked with me to keep Kyuubi chakra away from your brain as much as possible, but now the drug has been neutralized. Naruto frowned and asked, "What side effects did it have on me?" Tsunade said, "While the drug was fighting Kyuubi chakra, it was still doing what it was also designed to do, which is make it easier for you to remember things so you will have better memory and be able to think clearer. It won't instantly make you smarter, but you should be able to remember things that you read or experience better to help get smarter. You should be back to your normal hyperactive self, though besides that." Jiraiya said, "I do have some good news, Gaki. Eva and I worked on your idea for that new Bunshin Jutsu, and after some work we were able to make a tester with several concealment seals added to the storage seal, so it will be harder for people to figure it out. All we have to do now is have you test it, and if it works then Eva said you can have it for your arsenal at full strength in a few days. She has the tester in your armor somewhere." Naruto thought a moment and said, "Cho Fuin Bunshin. Cool." As he stretched and several bones popped. The Sandame asked, "Because of you being in the hospital, I have not informed anyone about your engagement to Temari or Tenten yet. Tenten is waiting to speak to you about if you want to still marry her. She's been here every day checking on you and talking to you while you were asleep." Naruto thought, "So those weren't dreams then?" Eva said, "No, I was able to change them into electrical impulses for your brain to see them. I thought you would want to know about them." Naruto thought, "Thanks, love," and said, "Thanks. Can you bring her in? I want to talk to her. Alone." Everyone nods and Naruto looked at Itachi, who was putting on his mask, and asked, "What's going to happen with Weasel?" All of them stopped and Tsunade said, "I guess I forgot to mention that. When we inform the council about your marriage to Temari, we will also be informing them about the truth about the Uchiha massacre and Danzo, though he has not returned to the village." Naruto frowned and asked, "What's that asshole got to do with any of this, and where is he?" Itachi turned and started to say something when the Sandame said, "Itachi didn't kill the Uchiha clan. He took the blame to save Sasuke from going after the real killer of the Uchiha clan. Danzo, who had his root Anbu, kill them." Naruto frowned and said, "So that's the official cover story you're going to use. What's the truth though? Come on, give me some credit. Besides Kakashi team, Itachi here was one of the only Anbu I trusted when I was younger, so I know when he is hiding something, and I've been around you enough to know when you're also hiding something. Usually, Kyuubi and my parents were two lies. I don't know if I just didn't want to admit you knew or honestly didn't know you were lying. I know you're lying about what really happened because your right pinky was twitching Gigi." Everyone was looking at the Sandame, who nods and said, "Do you agree for him to know the truth, Itachi?" Itachi said, "Yes. For the future, he needs to know he can trust me." Sarutobi said, "Very well. The story about Danzo and his root Anbu was true for the most part. They did kill the Uchiha clan because they were preparing to kill the council and me and take over the village. I did not want it to happen, but my two advisors Koharu and Hamaru agreed with Danzo that it needed to be done, so reluctantly I agreed. Itachi here was a spy in his clan reporting to me about their plans. I had Itachi lead the assault to bypass the Uchiha clan security. It was supposed to be only 21 people die that day. Itachi father and the Uchiha council, no one else. Danzo, however, had other plans. When Itachi came to report to me, the mission was a success and the leaders of the rebellion were dead, root returned, and wiped out the rest of the Uchiha clan except for Itachi and Sasuke, who was at the academy." Naruto said, "So Itachi took the entire blame to stop Sasuke from going after Danzo." Sarutobi nods and Naruto said, "I see. So what is going to happen now? I figure what you just told me is an S-rank secret." Sarutobi said, "Yes. Now after talking it over with Tsunade, we have decided to change the teams around a little bit. Tsunade has taken Sakura as her apprentice after an indecent with Team 7. Because of her witnessing your healing ability, Tsunade has figured out a way to perform a surgery on Lee to heal his damage from Gaara attack on him during the exams, and she has successfully completed the surgery, and next week, he should be able to return to light duty, and a week after that he should be able to return to full-time duty. As such, I have decided to pull Neji and Sasuke from Kakashi and place them under Guy with Lee." Naruto frowned and said, I have a problem with that. No offense, Itachi, but your brother is a selfish little asshole who doesn't care about anyone but himself. He's already stolen part of Fuzzy Brow's taijutsu and used it to beat his opponent during the preliminaries with his Sharingan, and Lee only can use taijutsu. Sasuke will just steal the rest of Lee taijutsu and treat him like shit afterwards." The Sandame said, "I am aware of that, Naruto, but because of the incident that I mentioned with Sakura, Sasuke Sharingan has been sealed, and both Jiraiya and Itachi feel that he should keep it sealed off until he can learn several lessons that he has ignored about comrades and loyalty, so without his Sharingan he will have to learn things the old-fashioned way." Naruto rubbed his head and said, "Okay. Sorry about that, I just didn't want to see all Lee's hard work taken away like Sasuke did. I may not know Fuzzy Brows very well, but after seeing what Gaara can do I respect Lee for nearly defeating him." Sarutobi said, "I will be sure to inform him of that. Now where was I? Oh yes, Team 9 under Guy will be Lee, Neji and Sasuke. Kakashi, after a review of how much he failed both you and Sakura, has had several penalties given to him. Because of the danger to you because of Akatsuki, Itachi and Kakashi will be assigned as your sensei while you are still Jiraiya apprentice. There is not much he can teach you at this time. You have already seen and acknowledged that most of your attacks are highly demanding on your chakra reserves. With Eva, Taijutsu is either going to be a secondary nature or a support skill. Ninjutsu and Kenjutsu will be your area of knowledge with seals as a support. Thanks to Eva, Jiraiya can leave behind manuals that she can help you understand seals better while he continues his spy network, though he will leave you scrolls to work with until you are older where he can teach you a few things that can't be taught for now. Now as I was saying, Team 7 will be you, Tenten, and Sakura under Itachi and Kakashi." Naruto frowned and said, "So Sakura?" Tsunade said, "Before you continue Naruto, I think you should know that Sakura is changing. Because of what happened with Sasuke and now that she knows how badly Kakashi was screwing you and her over, she wants to prove that she is a better ninja. The training I have been giving her in this short time has been brutal and she taken it without complaint, often leaving ready to pass out." Naruto said, "I wasn't going to say anything bad about her. Sakura strong in her own way, but what I was going to ask was she upset about not being with Sasuke?" Tsunade said, "Actually, I think being away from him will be the best thing for her, and she is actually scared of him right now, so I wouldn't worry about her being upset." Naruto said, "I see. That means she won't know about Kyuubi." Tsunade said, "That is something only you can tell her about Naruto." Naruto said, "Yeah. For now I don't trust her enough with that. I will watch her, and if she really has changed then I might, but not yet. I know Tenchan and Shino accept me, and I think Shikamaru does, but I haven't really had a chance to talk to him yet to find out." The Sandame said, "He does. Both him and Shino surprised me with them figuring it out along with your parents while you were retrieving Tsunade." Naruto nods and said, "I guess that is all I need to know. Wait, what did you mean thanks to me your cover was blown?" As he looked at Itachi. Itachi said, "Kisame was ranting over losing his arm and they asked where I was when he lost the arm and I told them I was at the border to Fire Country getting some Pocky. Everyone knows that is my addiction, so usually they would have accepted that answer. Unfortunately for me, the town I told them I was in getting the Pocky had been attacked the day before and all the stores were closed. The leader of Akatsuki asked what was the town like and I told him nothing unusual. He attacked me and I was lucky to escape using an exploding tag to close the entrance to the cave we were in, trapping them inside while I ran. I know all of them most likely escaped though." Naruto nods and Tsunade said, "You can be released this afternoon, but we have a council meeting at 10 a.m. tomorrow you have to attend. Don't speak unless spoken to and only answer the questions that are asked." Naruto frowned and said, "What if I don't want to answer something they ask?" The Sandame said, "Answer only what you feel you should, that is in your best interest." Naruto nods and Tsunade said, "Well, let's leave the couple alone." As she opened the door and left with everyone else, with Itachi having his mask on but Jiraiya, who said, "I will leave you some books on what to do on the honeymoon gaki." Naruto screamed, "Pervert," as the door closed. A few moments later the door opened and Tenten walked in with a couple of yellow flowers and asked, "How are you feeling?" Naruto said, "Like I got kicked by Lee in the head." With a small smile. Tenten smiled and said, "I was worried about you." As she put the flowers in some water and put them by his bed. Naruto grabbed her hands softly and said, "I know. Eva was able to show me your visits while I was in my coma. I thought they were dreams, but I am glad they weren't. I never really had anyone who came by to see me when I was in the hospital before besides Gigi and maybe Ayam and her dad." Tenten sat down on the bed with her cheeks a light pink and said, "So you know about?" Naruto said, "You rubbing my whiskers making me purr and the light kiss you gave me." Tenten cheeks got redder and said, "Yeah." Naruto nods and both were silent a moment and Naruto finally said, "Tenten, I never been good at feelings because of my life. I really don't know what love it or friendship for that matter. But I do have feelings for you. I don't know what they are, but I feel I can relax around you and that you won't judge me. I've told you things I haven't told anyone else except Eva. I do know that I don't want you to be unhappy or hurt, so if you don't want this marriage thing, then I will accept your answer as long as we can be friends. You're precious to me and have become a lifeline to me like Eva is." Tenten cheeks were flushed and she said, I tried to be nice to you at first because we were teamed together and I was curious how you defeated Niji. Then when I learned about the QB and heard your words about sacrifices and effect you had on Gaara, I saw a side of you that I never thought possible, so I wanted to get to know you better. When I saw the way you became in Wave, I saw what the people there saw. When we talked on that cliff, I felt like I was seeing the real you, and then we had to fight Kisame. You were worried about me more than yourself. I decided after that I would return the favor and protect you. That was why when I heard about you having to marry Temari, I felt like it was you being a sacrifice again, and I couldn't take it. You sacrificed so much already, I just had to save you some way. When you were fighting Sai, I was afraid you were going to be hurt badly, but then when you had the spell from that drug, my heart wouldn't stop worrying about you. You have a gift that makes it easy for people to want to be around you just by giving you a chance. I talked with Tsunade-sama and Shizune when they came by to check on you, as well as with Sandame-sama and Jiraiya-sama. I talked with my dad as well, and he respects you. My dad's friendly with a lot of people, but he hardly respects anyone. The fact that you earned his respect says something about you. I know that neither of us may be in actual love with one another right now, but I feel we both have feelings for each other. I think that with time they can grow into love, and that is part of what marriage is. What I am trying to say is that I want to marry you if you will have me. I want to learn all the sides of you and have you learn about me. I don't want to be behind you or ahead of you. I want to be beside you, and I know I have to share you with Temari, but like my dad. It is hard to earn my respect, and though I act like I'm pissed at her, I do respect her. Doesn't mean I won't stick a kunai up her ass next time we fight though. Naruto chuckled and said, You remind me of a friend of mine. Tenten blinked and asked, Who? Naruto said, Yugugo Yuzuki. Remember the proctor who had the cough? Hayat. Tenten nods and Naruto said Yugugo was his fiancé. He died before the invasion. Killed by a Sunanin, we think, since it was a wind jutsu. After I got back from getting Tsunade, I went and got drunk with two Chunin. I know some as a way to congratulate me. They got me drunk and tricked me into doing a panty raid on her, though they didn't tell me what it was I was supposed to take, only it was in her top drawer in her bedroom. Apparently they do it to all the new Chunin with a different woman each time. Yugugo is the best sword master in the village. She kept Bakken in her top drawer, and when I got one in the dark, she sort of sprang a trap on me and threw me down her laundry chute. When I got up in her basement, she attacked me and handed me my ass. After I passed out from the alcohol, she sat and waited, and when I came to Eva showed me what I did while drunk, and long story short, I fought Yugugo again to earn her respect and learned some kenjutsu from her, as well as became her friend. She knows about Eva also. A voice said, You forgot the part where we tricked the two idiots into thinking we slept together. As Yugugo walked in, Naruto said, Hey Yukin, how much did you hear? Yugugo hit him upside the head and asked, What the hell happened, Naruto? I just got back from border patrol and heard you were in the hospital. Naruto rubbed his head and said, Had a case of food poisoning. Had my stomach pumped. Nothing big. Yukin, I would like to introduce you to Tenten, the best thrown weapon user in Konoha. Tenten, this is Yugugo Yuzuki, the best sword master in the village. Tenten said, It's nice to meet you. I didn't know there was another woman who was an expert in her field in the village besides Tsunade-sama. Yugugo said, Well, my late fiancé was the true master. He taught me all I know, but he was killed before the invasion. As for how much I heard you talking about a kiss and purring. Tenten blushed and Naruto turned a little red and Naruto said, So how are you doing, Yukin? Yugugo said, All right, came by to see how you were. I was worried about you. Naruto said, Yeah, it was an interesting trip. Ran into a member of the Seven again. Kisame. With Tenten and Eva help, I was able to make him retreat after taking his arm. Then had to fight Danzo-san in a Chunin exam-style battle and took his pride and joy and his leg with an exploding senbon. Now I'm in all kinds of political headaches thanks to that old warhorse, and Tenten trying to save me from them got herself involved also. Yugugo said, Really, what kind of headaches? Tenten said, He has to start his own clan. The fact he's the son of the Yondaime has came out, so he has to take his family name, and now he's engaged to Temari, the daughter of the former Kazekage, who is also the sister to the new Kazekage and me. Yugugo blinked and said, You're the Yondaime's son. Naruto said, I thought I told you. I don't really remember. My head's killing me right now, but yeah. Yugugo said, I don't really remember that well either. I was drinking a lot when we met myself because of the pain of missing Hayat. So you have to marry that Suna girl. Tenten said, Actually he kind of owns her. The battle he had with Sai, Danzo-san, was over ownership of Temari. The Sandaime wanted Naruto to fight for her and Danzo wanted Sai to. Naruto said, It was more of an official order than a choice. Fight Sai or give Danzo control of Suna basically. Yugogo frowned and said, I see. Naruto said, I know how you feel, Yukin, but please don't be upset with me about it. I know you don't like Suna since we think one of them killed Hayate. If I could, I would free both Tenten and Temari because they both deserve better than me. I care for them like I care for you, but… Tenten was biting her lip and Yugogo turned sharply and glared at Naruto and said, What was that? In a demanding voice. Naruto said, Yugogo said, You said you care for me. Releasing a little ki. Naruto said, yeah. As he rubbed his head. Yugogo frowned and said, I'm too old for you. Naruto asked, What does age matter if you care for someone? I mean, I know you care for me since you said you wanted me to come back okay. Yugogo said, And you came back to be put in the hospital. Naruto looked down and Yugogo sighed and said, So what's your take on this girl? The lunkhead here said that he cares for you but didn't want to marry you. Tenten said, There's more to it than that. It's just before this last mission we only met in the exams, but I guess you could say he grew on me. Yugogo sighed and said, Yeah, it's hard for him not to grow on you. So you're marrying two girls, huh? Naruto said, That's the plan for now. I'm still trying to figure things out. You got any advice? I don't even know what I am supposed to do being engaged to Temari and Tenten. Yugogo coughed and said, And me? As she looked away. Both Naruto and Tenten were wide-eyed and asked at the same time, What? Yugogo sighed and said, Godame-sama and Sandame-sama briefed me about what happened in Suna. They told me you were worried you would lose your relationship with me because of Temari, so they wanted to explain things. I heard it all from them, including your encounter with Kisame, and I was informed about this Akatsuki that is after you. Because of this, I asked what kind of security detail were you and the girls getting, because if something were to happen to Temari or you after the wedding, it could result in a war between our villages. They informed me that while you were with your team, you had two elites that was going to be your sensei to help prepare you for the future, as well as while you're still not experienced enough to deal with all the threats that might come since your family name is now out. I also voiced my concern about Temari and you because I don't trust Suna. I told them my doubts about what could happen to you when you were alone with her, and they asked me what did they expect for them to do because there was no way they could pay for a security detail full-time during your downtime. I sort of said that I would watch you both to protect you, and they told me that I couldn't do that because she would be legally your wife and have private times between the two of you. I sort of let my anger get the best of me and said that if the only way to protect you was to marry you, then so be it. I didn't know about Tenten here though being in the deal since it was still undecided. Tenten bites her lip and said, So you only want to marry him because you want to protect him from Temari. Naruto looked down and Yugogo said, Not entirely. That is some of it, but like you said, he grows on you. If he wouldn't have came in my life, when he did, I probably would have started taking suicide missions or drank myself to death. He pulled me from my depression and loneliness, and so I want to be there for him. Tenten said, Then I don't have a problem with you. A click sound was heard and a small item shot out of Naruto's shoulder, and suddenly a puff of smoke appeared and Eva was standing at the foot of the bed and said, I think you both are forgetting something. I'm his first wife and decide who else gets to be. As she crossed her arms and began to tap her foot. Naruto looked up and said, So it worked. Tenten asked, What's going on? As Yugogo frowned looking at Eva. Eva walked over and slapped him upside the head and said, That answer your questions, Naruto-kun. Naruto rubbed his head and asked, Why is it always my head that takes a pounding? Eva said, Because your other head's going to be busy pounding us later. Tenten blushed and said, making everyone look at her wide-eyed. Eva frowned and said, I'm not your mother, Tenten. Tenten bit her lip and Yugogo asked, Wait, why did she call you mom and how are you here? The last time I saw you, you did not have a real body. Eva said, If you're really going to marry Naruto-kun, then you have to keep what you're about to hear a secret. Both of you. As she looked at both women. Yugogo nods and Tenten frowns but nods, and Eva said, All right. The first thing you need to know is that I was created by Tenten parents before they came to Konoha. My image is made to look after my creator, her mother, but I am a different person than her mom. You can't tell anyone or they will target her dad and her to learn the secret of the armor. Now as for how I am here, this is something Naruto and I originally were working on before this whole marriage thing ever showed up. Naruto said, I view Eva as real as either of you. She's a person herself with thoughts, feelings, everything but an actual body. She pulled me from my darkness when I felt like my world was crumbling around me, but the problem with this is she didn't have a real body. Eva said, so we came up with an idea after we learned Naruto Sexy no Jutsu was an actual shapeshift instead of a henge, that if there was a way for me to have my own chakra and a way to transfer my mind, I might be able to get my own body. Tenten said, Cho Fuin Bunshin. That is why you were wanting to know if you could store chakra, so you could give Eva chakra to mold herself to gain a body. Eva said, yeah, that small ball that shot out of Naruto's shoulder was the tester Jiraiya, and I created while Naruto was asleep, and I redirected some of his chakra into it so that way we could test it. I added a control nanite and a couple of drones to it so that way I could control it from the inside. Being able to read Naruto body the way I could gave me an understanding to do this, though it does have its drawbacks at the moment that we are still working on. Yugogo said, so you got your own body. Eva said, for now though this is only a Kagebunshin body, so I can only take one hit before the jutsu is finished, but it's a start for what Naruto and I discussed after this whole wedding thing came up. Tenten looked at Naruto and asked, what were you both talking about, Naruto? Naruto sighed and said, one of the things I have hated the most about my life is not knowing where I came from and having to learn everything on my own without anyone to help me when I am stuck with something. We're all ninja, and I'm worried that if you all actually fall in love with me and we start a family together, that something might happen to us like it did my parents, and then there would not be anyone there for our children. Eva said, that is where I come in. I won't ever be able to have children in Naruto, and I have several ideas that we are exploring to make it where after he dies I will still be able to live on. The idea is that I sort of become the godmother to all the future Namake's children. Since I can repair myself, we thought that I might be able to create a new armor for our family, and each of the children will have their own armor to help protect them, and since I record everything around me and I am constantly learning myself, that I can become like a living archive, so the children can ask me where they came from or about family skills and jutsu, and I can help to train them or answer questions they have. That way the things that Naruto experienced as a child won't happen to his children, grandchildren, and so on and so forth. I will become like a bloodline for the Namake's clan. Yugogo bit her lip and looked at Naruto and said, you seem to have put a lot of thought into this. Naruto blushed and said, I've had a secret dream besides being Hokage that I have only told Eva. I wanted a family, but after I found out about Kyuubi, I was afraid I would never have one. I think that is why when Eva came into my life, she became my pillar of strength, and she evolved from a simple program into an actual person. Eva frowned and said, I hate to say it, but I am nearly out of chakra. As she was covered in smoke and a small ball fell to the bed. Naruto grabbed it and looked at it before placing it on his shoulder, and Tenten looked out the window and Naruto said, sorry Tenten. I know this must be hard on you since she looks like your mother, and Eva said she is going to change her look so that way it. Tenten interrupted him and said, just shut up. I know she's not my mother, and I am thankful for what she done, so I could see and hear my mother once. I was surprised when I heard what you and Eva were saying, and I felt like my mom was cheating on my dad, but you're right. She's not my mom. It was just unexpected, and I am still trying to figure everything out. I'm engaged now, and I never been on a date before. We are talking about kids, and I've never even kissed before besides the one I gave you while you were in a coma. Things are gonna fast for me right now. I need some time to think things through and get some air. I will come see you tomorrow, Naruto. Naruto said, wait, I'm getting out today, but I have a council meeting at 10 a.m. tomorrow over all this. Have you heard about our new senseis yet? Tenten said, no. I thought we were getting Gai Sensei. Naruto said, no, Tsunade after working on me was able to perform a surgery on Lee so he can return to light duty next week and regular duty the week after that. Lee, Niji, and Sasuke are now Team Gai, and you, me and Sakura are going to be with Kakashi team and an ANBU who watched me as a kid. Well, I can't tell you anything else about him because he was deep cover and I don't know how much is classified. Tenten said, after everything is done with the council, come by my family shop. That will give me time to think. I still want to marry you, but I want to slow down and take smaller steps for a while. Naruto said, okay, we will, I promise. Tenten smiled and said, bye. Nice meeting you, sister. As she left, Yugogo watched the door close and then looked at Naruto and said, you really are the #1 surprise ninja. So anything else I need to know? Naruto frowned and asked, are you okay with this? I mean, Yugogo chuckled and said, Tenten right, just shut up. You worry so much you ramble. Naruto said, sorry. But yeah, there is something else I want to talk to you about. Yugogo heard the seriousness in his voice and asked, what is it? Naruto bit his lip and said, I've got a lot of enemies now. Most of them are stronger than me. Both fights I had with Sai and Kisame could have went the other way and I could have died. Tenten and Temari are both strong women like you, but they don't have the experience you do. I know you don't trust Temari, but she in the same situation as Tenten and you. The three of you are going to be targeted by my enemies and I don't know if I can save you all. Yugogo frowned and said, "We're all strong, Naruto." Naruto said, "I know and I hope I am wrong. But if I'm not, there are things I haven't told anyone. Eva knows, but she may die with me if we can't figure out a way to do what we were talking about, so she may not be able to use the info she has. In that case, I want you to watch out for the girls and use what I am about to tell you to protect them and yourself. The three of you first, Konoha second." As he looked into her eyes, Yugogo asked, "Are you asking me to betray Konoha?" As she stiffened, Naruto said, "It's Konoha that I am afraid of. You would have to be blind to see that hate the people have for me here, so please." As he trailed off, showing the worry he had in his eyes, Yugogo closed her eyes and after several seconds said, "Very well." Naruto said, "If Konoha becomes unsafe for the three of you, go to Wave Country. Seek out a woman named Tsunami. She's the daughter of the new feudal lord in Wave. Tell her to take you to Nami Incorporated. I sent my mission money back to Wave after I returned from my first mission there, and she invested it to help the country recover from Gato. She's really good at business and most of the country's growth came from her directing the recovery process, and I'm now a silent partner in all the ocean shipping companies in the world as well as several other business. I get 2% off all profit for the companies deposited into an account. I haven't touched the money because it could lead a trail from here to there, so I'm saving it for later as a backup or the future if things work out alright. Tsunami is running the business for me and she will help the three of you. After all, you would be aunts to her unborn daughter." Yugogo eyes got wide and Naruto said, "I saved her life from some of Gato men, and then after what happened on the bridge, the rest of my team ignored me for a few days. She helped me get over my first kill while the others watched over Sasuke. I only found out she was pregnant after I went to Wave this last time to place the memorial stone I ordered for some friends who died. Nobody but her, me, and now you know about this, and that is the way it is going to stay." Yugogo frowned and said, "So you're not claiming your child?" Naruto said, "It's not that. We didn't even have sex." Yugogo was now confused and she asked, "Then how is it that she is with your child when you didn't have sex?" Naruto bit his lip and said, "While Tazuna came to Konoha to get protection for his bridge Tsunami, and her son Inari were still in Wave. People were disappearing all the time in Wave because of the mercs, especially women." Yugogo eyes got wide and said, "So she was?" Naruto nods and said, "She told me that if I hadn't killed the two guys that I did, then it would have happened again and she most likely wouldn't survive. She was lucky the first time the guy passed out drunk after he finished before he killed her. She hasn't told her father or son she's pregnant because she doesn't want them to know what happened to her. I told her if she wanted she could claim I am the father. She agreed, so besides her and me, you are the only other one who knows the truth and I will claim she's mine for Tsunami." Yugogo asked, "Why did you tell me about this?" Naruto said, "You're ANBU? I saw the tattoo. I figured that if you had to take the girls and left Konoha, you would want proof it was safe to go to Wave like I asked, since you don't become ANBU for being stupid. You needed to know why Tsunami would be willing to risk everything to help you, so that is why I told you." Yugogo nods and said, "I see. You seem different, Naruto. I can't quite place my finger on it, but you're different than you were when you left." Naruto closed his eyes and said, I'm not sure who I can trust anymore, Yu-chan. The Sandaime ordered me to kill Sai Danzo-san. I couldn't do it, I couldn't kill a Konoha ninja myself. But I nearly killed him in that fight. After I woke up after the girls knocked me out for being an idiot, the Sandaime told me that it was a test. He told me he didn't know who I was anymore, and from the way he worded it, he basically told me that had I actually followed his orders and killed Sai, then he would have killed me. Yugogo eyes were wide as she heard this. She asked, "Why would he do that?" Naruto said, "On the way to Suna I asked to go to Wave. I'm sure he told you since he told you about my fight with Kisame." Yugogo nods and Naruto said, "The people there treated me with respect like a hero. Children ran up to me wanting me to play with him. Adults showed their respect with either comments or actions. Jiraiya told the Sandaime that it was how I should have been seen in Konoha. Because of this, the Sandaime felt that if it came down to a choice between Wave and Konoha, I would choose Wave. Konoha is my home and I love the village and I would never betray the village. But now, because of the way I am seen in Wave and because of Eva, he doesn't trust me. I know he claims it's for my safety, but he placing an extra sensei on my team who has shown that he is loyal to Konoha before even his family. I feel my every action is going to be watched now. That's why I think you were tricked into agreeing to marry me, so they could watch my private life as well." Yugogo asked, "What do you mean I was tricked into marrying you? It was my decision." Naruto chuckled and said, "Gigi is called the god of Shinobi for a reason. It's not because of his battle skills, though that could be the reason some people think. The real reason is he is skilled enough to get an enemy to do what he wants them to do and think it was their idea. You don't trust Suna because of Hayat. If you thought I was being influenced against Konoha by Temari, then you would report it to the Hokage. You would be watching for anything that could be considered a danger to me or Konoha, for that reason instantly blaming Suna for it. That means you would be loyal to Konoha above me and the girls for our protection. Gigi realizes this just like I do. You said it yourself. They made you angry through that conversation, showing that you could not do anything until. Yugugo frowned and said, "Until I said I would marry you to protect you." Naruto nods and Yugugo sat down in thought for several moments, and Naruto said, "No matter what, I will always be held to a double standard. At best I am considered a weapon, and at worst I am considered a threat. If a weapon becomes too dangerous for you to control, then you get rid of it. Gigi afraid that I am getting out of control because of the way I am treated in Wave along with my new abilities thanks to Eva. He wants a way to control me, which is why he revealed the secret of my parents to all of Suna and forced me to fight in a battle that I would be stuck into marring Temari. I think he had it planned the entire time before we left. That is why he chose Tenten to come with us and be on the same team as me. He knew she hated Temari because of her defeat in the Chunin exams, and she would jump at a chance to have a rematch against her, so when he said I was going to fight for Temari hand, she started to try and figure out a way to fight Temari, and here we are. Yes, Tenten has feelings for me, but in the end her pride wanted to fight Temari and prove she could defeat her. I was second." Yugugo said, "You make it sound like we're nothing but pawns in a game." Naruto said, "And that is why he is called the god of Shinobi. Zabuza told me that most people view ninja as tools to be used without question by our village. He went against his village belief until the very end, trying to change that view. To show that after everything was said and done that we are human first. After his death, I reviewed my life and I came across several things that made me question myself. My team, my home, my name, my parents. Everything has been judged to on what to say and what to do to keep me in control of the village. He claims that it was for my protection I couldn't know about my father, and I agree, but why couldn't I ever be told about my mother? What was so bad about her that I was told I was an orphan with unknown mother and father? He gave me my mother's last name, but he couldn't tell me who she was. Then there is where I live. My old apartment was set exactly center of ANBU headquarters, the Hokage Tower, and the Uchiha Police Force headquarters. 1 week after the Uchiha massacre, my old apartment had a gas leak that destroyed only my apartment, and I was moved into the one I am in now, which is exactly center of the Hokage Tower, ANBU headquarters, and Root headquarters." Yugugo couldn't believe what she was hearing, but the more she thought about it, she couldn't deny what she was hearing, and she looked at Naruto with a shocked look, and Naruto said, "Like I said, it seems that everything in my life has been set up to control me in some way. Now that you, Temari, and Tenten are becoming involved in my life, that makes all three of you another form of control. After all, you reward good behavior from your pet with a treat that you can later threaten to take away to make sure the pet stays loyal." As he looked out the window, Yugugo looked away and asked, "If everything you said is true, then why are you going along with it?" Naruto was silent for several minutes and said, "Like I said before, I honestly thought I would never have a family. It's something I have wanted dearly in my life. For now I am being given what I want, so I will play along for now and see where the pieces land. The village lets me live as normal a life as I can with my family. I will remain loyal to the village. If they don't, then I will protect my precious people. No matter what, I am human first. As such, I will protect my family first and my home second. I can always find a new home. I can't replace my family." Yugugo asked, "Why are you telling me all this? It doesn't make any sense. How can you trust me with what you are saying not to tell the Hokage?" Naruto said, "It's either one of two reasons. Either I trust you with my life because I care for you and I am showing you my loyalty, or I am testing you to see which you would decide, me and the other girls or the village." Yugugo bit her lip and asked, "Which is it?" Naruto said, "That's something you will have to decide yourself. I'm a little tired, and you said you just got back from a mission, so you should be tired also. Why don't we see each other later?" Yugugo said, "All right." As she got up and walked toward the door, she stopped and said, "Just so you know, I really do have feelings for you because you helped me through a very hard time in my life. It's not love yet, but it could be." Naruto saw her standing there and he said, "I know. That is why I hope the day never comes where I have to decide between my home and my family. I want a family here in Konoha and for my children and grandchildren to grow up here. I hope I am wrong about everything that I told you, and I hope someday you, Temari, and Tenten find love with me and we have a long and happy life, that the village changes and accepts us. But just in case, I want to make sure that those who are precious to me are taken care of. Isn't that what any husband wants for his wife and children? Yugogo bit her lip and turned around and walked over and kissed Naruto on the lips, shocking him, and she slowly pulled back and said, "You're too damn mature for someone your age. I guess that is why I am falling for you. If you want this marriage to work, then spend time with all three of us. Take us out on dates, train with us, get to know us, our likes, dislikes, and treat us with respect and care. You do that and you won't be sorry." Naruto smiled and said, "Thanks. I'm sorry if I hurt you with what I said." Yugogo said, "That is what part of being in a relationship is about. Talking about your fears, working through them, and support each other." Naruto said, "I guess then I got nothing to worry about." Yugogo smiled and said, "Yeah, you do. Just wait until all three of us have PMS. You're going to want to fight several S-rank missing Nins, then deal with us. After all, we all three are deadly with weapons." Eva appeared in a hologram and said, "That might be a new reason to call you Iron Man. All the women in your life carry very deadly weapons which have iron in them." Naruto slapped his head and said, "I am going to kill Erosanin for that name later," causing both women to laugh before Eva disappeared. Yugogo kissed him lightly one more time and said, "See you, Foxy," as she left in a swirl of leaves. Naruto sighed and said, "Woman." After Yugogo left, Naruto sighed and Eva asked, "You feel better?" Naruto said, "Yeah. Most of the things I have been holding on my shoulders are off now. I feel lighter." Eva said, "I'm glad. You've been acting too emo for my taste." Naruto frowned and said, "Was I really becoming another Sasuke? Bitch, slap me next time." Eva chuckled and said, "So what's the plan?" Naruto sighed and said, "I want you to start working on ideas to improve the armor and weapon systems. Also work on some defense systems as well. We got lucky in our fights, but our luck can't last forever and my enemies know nearly my entire network. Work on finding a way to cut Kyuubi chakra completely off from me." Eva blinked and asked, "Why?" Naruto said, "Remember when we were fighting those bandits in Wave? Remember what happened in that room?" Eva said, "Yeah." Naruto said, "That's the first time that happened and I haven't been able to do it again. I think Kyuubi chakra is keeping me from using it again since it was cut off from me at the time." Eva said, "It is possible. I think I can use the seal gates to keep Kyuubi chakra away, but then what will we do with it?" Naruto said, "See if you can use the new Bunshin with Kyuubi chakra and see if it lasts longer. If it can, maybe we might be able to weaponize it. I need to work on my chakra control and my wind element and some water element also. Maybe if I get a better control on both, I can do that again." Eva said, "Right. If that is all, then meditate while I work on that." Naruto said, "Good luck," as he closed his eyes and began to meditate. A few hours later, Naruto opened his eyes and blinked and said, "Huh." Shizen said, "You okay? I was calling to you for a few minutes." Naruto said, "Sorry about that. I was meditating like you taught me." Shizen asked, "Really? How far have you gotten?" Naruto said, "I got from my heart to my right arm and down to my hip on my right side, but that's as far as I've gotten." Shizen said, "Well, every little bit helps. So how are you feeling?" Naruto moved a little and said, "I had a headache earlier, but it's gone now. Other than that, I feel fine." Shizen said, "That's good. I already checked you vitals and you were okay. You need anything else before I release you?" Naruto bit his lip and said, "Yeah, how do you test to see if you have a bloodline?" Shizen said, "Well, we usually do it with a test of the area where you think you have a bloodline or use elemental cards. If you think your healing is a bloodline, we checked that already because of Danzo comment in Suna. It's not. That all comes from Kyuubi chakra in you." Naruto bit his lip and said, "Actually, that's not why I was asking about. I think I might have something else. Something I haven't told anyone about." Shizen said, "Really? Well, why don't you tell me and I can do the testing for you and find out if it is just another one of your quirks or a real bloodline." Naruto sighed and said, "Before the invasion, after I got Eva, I went to Wave to practice with Eva, and while I was there I was asked to stop some thugs who had worked for Gato before he was killed. It was right before I came back to Konoha and I decided I was going to try the hidden mist jutsu to aid me since there were so many of them. Everything was going great until I got to the leaders who had themselves in this room ready to ambush me. The hidden mist jutsu was in that room, and with Eva abilities I could see them no problem, though they couldn't see me. One finally got scared and started swinging his sword around all wild, and he nearly killed me with a wild swing, and I fell to the floor and they heard me hit the ground and all went to kill me, and somehow it happened." Shizen, who was sitting on the bed, asked, "What happened?" Naruto said. The water in the room from the hidden mist jutsu suddenly turned the room into a block of ice. The men and I were all trapped in a block of ice and they all died from it, and if I didn't have Eva on I probably would have also. Took me and Eva 4 hours to get out of it. Haku. Zabuza apprentice who was a friend of mine that I met in Wave before he died told me the story about his life, and his story was almost the same as me. His bloodline kicked in after his father, and some villagers in the Land of Water went to kill him, and ice spears shot out and killed his father and all the villagers that were there to kill him. I think I have his bloodline, but... Shizune asked, but what? As she began to check her pockets. Naruto said, at the time I was cut off from Kyuubi chakra. I had forgot Orochimaru had put a 5-star seal over the Kyuubi seal. Jiraiya removed it after the invasion, and now I'm not able to make ice, frost, or even cold air. I think Kyuubi chakra is keeping me from accessing my bloodline if it is a bloodline. Shizune had pulled out a needle and said, well, we can find out. Let me take a blood sample from you and then seal off Kyuubi chakra and take another. If it is, then maybe we can talk to Jiraiya-sama about ways to make it where you can still use it if you really do have one. Naruto said, in a way I hope I do, but... Shizune said, then you also hope you don't because of your friend. Naruto nods and Shizune took a sample of his blood and she said, okay. Let me see the seal real quick. Naruto said, you know how to seal off Kyuubi chakra. Shizune said, 5-star seals are used for more than sealing off Kyuubi chakra. Naruto. They are used in medical jutsu as well sometime, though those are rare cases like that Lee kid. We had to shut his entire chakra network down except to his heart and brain, so there was no chakra feedback during his surgery. As her hand glowed and slammed it into Naruto's stomach. Taking another sample, she undid it and Naruto asked, how long will it take to find out? Shizune said, I will test it myself, so 20 minutes. Naruto said, thanks Shizune, but if it does come back I do have one, can we keep it a secret for now? I got enough on my plate for the moment. Shizune said, sure. As she left. After she was gone, Naruto thought, Eva, did you get that? Eva said, yes, though neither of us have the control to pull it off yet. Naruto nods and does a few stretches. 25 minutes later, Shizune walked back into the room and saw Naruto standing on his hands and said, feeling better? Naruto said, yeah, just working a few kinks out. So what did you find? Shizune closed the door and said, well, it appears that you are right. You do have a bloodline that leans toward ice. Kyuubi being a fire demon is overpowering the water element you have, making it too weak for you to use ice jutsu. It's a miracle that you can pull off that hidden mist jutsu, and if it wasn't for the fact you're probably overpowering it with chakra, then it most likely wouldn't work. Naruto frowned, and before he could say anything, Shizune said, but the good news is if you work on your elemental affinities, especially your water, and increase it, then you should be able to balance it out enough to pull off some more ice jutsu. Naruto asked, how do I work on water? I got instructions on wind, but how do I go about water? Shizune said, well, there are 5 exercises that you can do. It just so happens I am a water affinity, so I can tell you how to do them. The first exercises is trying to move water that is standing still. Usually a lake is used for this exercise. Stand on the water and let your chakra flow into the water until you can feel all the water around 5 feet around you in your chakra. Then you mold your chakra in the water to move either clockwise or counterclockwise. Not both. Once you can get the water to spin around you, then keep that going until you do it for an hour without stopping. This will not only increase your chakra control, but your elemental control. Naruto said, alright, what's the second one? Shizune said, the second one is like the first, but you have to put more chakra into the exercise until you can do a 10-foot area around you, and then you have the water closest to you moving one way while the water further out moves the other way. Until you get the first exercise, don't do the second one because it will make you work 10 times harder to get the same results. Once you can get it going 2 different ways, increase the size of area you're working on and try to get 1 going clockwise and 2 counterclockwise, or whichever way you're going, and keep increasing your range until you either do the entire area around you or you run out of chakra that can be used to cover the area. Naruto said, alright, that is kind of like the Rasengan, so it won't take me too long to figure out. Shizune chuckled and said, anyways, the third exercise is harder. After you get the first 2 down, you need to learn to stick your hand in the water without getting wet by molding the chakra to move around your hand with the least amount of chakra. Once you get just the hand, do the arm, feet, legs, and keep going until you get your entire body into the water without getting wet. This is how most those in the Land of Water train in, so they can use another jutsu to turn water into air and stay underwater for as long as needed or until they run out of chakra. Try to do it with the least amount of chakra as possible though. Naruto said, that will be harder, but I can do it. What's the fourth one? Shizun said, the fourth one is standing under a waterfall and combining the first three exercises together. You have to stay dry while standing in the river under the waterfall and the falling water back up the waterfall. This is a Jounin level chakra control and elemental control exercise. Naruto said, whoa, I never would have thought of that. What's the last one? Shizun said, the last one is one only the Nidaime Hokage was able to do. Pull the water from the air to make small cushions of water floating in the air so you can literally walk on air. It takes insane control to do that, and even then he was only able to do it for about 20 feet in the air before he had to stop. Gravity makes it harder since you are fighting it as well as trying to keep your concentration and balance. Naruto said, okay, I will get started on those and my wind element. Shizun frowned and said, you should do one or the other, not both Naruto. This is not something you can just get overnight. It takes years to develop even one and you're wanting to develop two to get a third one. That may take you till you're 20 since mastering two elements is a Jounin level skill. Naruto said, I have to try anyways. Thanks for the help, Shizun. I appreciate it. Shizun sighed and said, just be careful, alright? People care for you. Naruto said, I will, don't worry. See ya. As he left. Shizun sighed and said, he's going to kill himself. I just know it. As she continued her rounds. After Naruto left the hospital, Naruto thought, okay. Gaara Scroll said to take a stone and bend my chakra to a fine edge and then use the edge to cut it. Where to train where there are stones and water. As he thought a moment before a place popped in his mind and he began to run. 20 minutes later he was standing by the river he had to clean garbage out of and thought, this is perfect, the lake below will allow me to practice the water control and there are all those damn rocks that I kept slipping on in the river up here. Since it's basically chakra control I can use my Kage Bunshin to do it but not to many. As he put his hands together and said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. As 30 appeared. He quickly counted them and said, alright, I want 10 of you to work on the first water control exercise on the lake below and 10 of you to work on the wind control with the rocks out of the lake. A Kage Bunshin asked, what about the other 10? Naruto said, chakra control, use the leaf balancing and water walking on this river. It should make it harder to help increase our control. Another Kage Bunshin asked, what are you going to be doing, boss? Naruto gulped and said, I'm going to the library. Making all his clones gasp. They all stood at attention and saluted him and one said, remember the hero who stands before us now. May he be given ramen from the gods in the next life. Naruto's sweat dropped and Eva said, your clones are idiots. Naruto thought, but they're clones of me. Eva said, I know. Naruto had anime tears falling out of his eyes at that and said, alright, enough wasting time, get to work. As he left. When he got to the library he walked in and saw a woman with pink hair at the counter, and he took a deep breath and walked in, and the woman looked at him for a moment and after she took a deep breath asked, can I help you? Naruto said, I hope so. I am looking for some books on a couple of things and I've never been here before. The woman said, I know. Naruto saw the way she was looking at him and asked, do you want me to leave? The woman blinked and asked, why would you ask that? Naruto said, you seem like you don't like me is all. I didn't want to make you mad. The woman said, you're Naruto Uzumaki. My daughter used to be on your team with Sasuke. It's not you I am mad at but Sasuke and Kakashi. When you were there she never got hurt like she did after you were gone. I was just trying to figure out what made you special enough to stop her from being hurt. Forgive me. Where are my manners? My name is Suki Haruno. As she offered her hand. Naruto shook it and said, pleasure, miss. Forgive me for asking. I've been gone on several missions lately, but what exactly happened between Sasuke and Sakura? I heard there was an incident but haven't heard exactly what. Is she okay? Suki said. Sasuke punched her in the face and busted her lip. The actual attack wasn't that bad but it hurt her emotionally and mentally. She's doing better now since Tsunade-sama has been giving her medical training, though she's mostly learning basic first aid so far. Naruto said, well, I don't know if it means anything but she's being reassigned to be on my team again, along with Tenten under Kakashi and another sensei who will be our primary sensei I believe. Suki said, really? So no more Sasuke? Naruto said, no. Suki smiled and said, that's good news. So what is it you were looking for? Naruto thought a second and said, basic human anatomy, strategy, anything you can find on weapons and technology and seals. Suki said, that's a lot of things to read at once. Naruto said, I have a jutsu that lets me multitask a lot at the same time. It will allow me to read several things at once. Suki said, Okay. Is there anything else? Naruto thought for several moments and said, Geography, culture, dating, manners, and cooking. Suki blinked and said, The last four sound like you're trying to impress a girl, but why geography? Naruto said, Since I am a chunin, I may have to lead a team sometime and I need to know where I am going so we don't get lost. As for the last four, you're sort of right. I'm in a political engagement with a couple of ladies and I want to do right by them. Suki frowned a moment and said, I see. Whenever I hear about political marriages, I never thought about the guy who would have to be marrying. I always thought it was the woman who had to change for the husband. If you're trying to do right by them, that means you are a good person at heart. I hope you and them will be happy. I got a few other things I think you might need if you want things to work. Go have a seat and I will bring you several books on what you asked for. How much can you multitask? Naruto said, I could do the entire library in one day if I wanted to, but I might die from overload. Try to keep it under 30 books if you can. Suki said, Sure, that will work. As she left, Naruto sat down and a few minutes later she came back with a cart full of books and said, Here you go. Just put them in the cart when you're done and I will put them back. Naruto picked up one of the books and said, Massage Methods. Suki said, You're not the only one who will be sore from a hard day's work. Your fiancé will also at times, so knowing how to do them will show the girls how much you care for them. Naruto smiled and said, Thanks. I wish I would have come here before. Suki frowned and said, Come on Tuesdays, Thursday, and Saturdays. Those are the days I work. The other lady is difficult. Naruto frowned and said, I understand and I know about that. Suki said, I see. Well, you're human to me. Have a good day, as she turned and left. Naruto closed his eyes and thought slowly. When Naruto left the library, he was holding his head and thought, Note to self. Dispel one at a time next time in the library. Eva said, True, but at least we got a lot of information to help us later. I got a few ideas for the future that I scanned, but nothing that will stand out as an instant win to help for now. Naruto nods and soon walks into his apartment and looks around and thought, The room's still like I left it. As he walked over to the fridge and threw some food out that spoiled before he opened the cabinet and got some noodles down and started to boil them and thought, Well, it's not ramen, but it will do. As the noodles cooked, he closed his eyes and leaned his head against the cabinet and blinked, and a few moments later, he blinked as he felt a pair of arms come around him and he looked over his shoulder and saw Eva standing there, but she looked different now. She had red hair and blue eyes and she asked, So how do I look, Naruto-kun? Naruto said, Different but still beautiful. Eva smiles and kissed him on the lips and he smiled and said, So what are you doing out here? Not that I mind. Eva reached around and turned off the burner and said, Just a little experiment. As she grabbed his hand and led him to his bedroom and shoved him on the bed. Naruto flopped down on the bed and looked at Eva with a raised eyebrow and she giggled and said, Just lay back and relax. I want to see what this body can do and can't do, and this is the best way I know to do it outside of battle. The better I know this body, the better I can be used later. Naruto gulped and asked, And exactly how are you going to test that body? Eva smiled seductively and walked up to the bed before she crawled the rest of the way up to Naruto's face and began to kiss him as she loosened the belt on his pants. Naruto, who was returning the kiss, felt her loosen his belt and began to pull his pants down and raised his butt, and he felt his boxers slip off as well. Eva broke the kiss and pulled them completely off and threw them on the floor before she motioned for him to sit up before she took his shirt off and threw it with the rest of his cloths. She kissed him again as she ran a hand over his chest and stomach and said, Now this is where I need you to just lay back and relax and enjoy. Naruto laid his head back and Eva crawled down and began to stroke him with her hands and slowly put the tip of his member in her mouth and slowly began to move up and down. Naruto shuddered as he felt this and thought, Never knew Kage Bunshin had spit before. As he groaned as he felt her swirl her tongue around the head. After about 5 minutes of this, Naruto was panting and he said, Eva, Eva, who was rubbing his balls with one hand and bobbing her head up and down, replaced her mouth with her free hand and said, I know, do it. As she replaced her mouth and a few sucks later, Naruto exploded in her mouth. Naruto was panting as he laid there on the bed, and Eva crawled up and kissed him on the lips, and she pulled back and Naruto had a confused look on his face and said, Salty. Eva said, Now you know what you taste like. As she rubbed his balls some more. Naruto was shocked but felt himself getting hard again as Eva put his hands on her breast and he began to rub them and play with them, and he lightly pinched the nipples and groaned at the feeling he was feeling, and Eva saw him get hard again and she slowly slid on top of his member. Naruto winced as he felt this and said, tight. Eva was gritting her teeth and said, I know. Just be still. Naruto nods as he leaned forward and began to lick her nipples. Eva began to pant a little and she slowly began to move her hips up and down lightly, and Naruto groaned as each time she did it he could feel her muscles and thought, I wonder if it really feels like this. As he laid back and squirmed as he felt Eva getting faster. Eva began to rock back and forward and she said, oh yeah, that's the SP. As she went up in smoke. Naruto groaned in frustration and he heard Eva say, that was so not right. Naruto looked at his member and saw it was nearly purple, ready to be released, and thought, tell me about it. With a groan before he threw his head back and closed his eyes and fell asleep moments later. The next morning Naruto walked to the council chambers and saw Weasel standing outside the door and he said, yo. In a lazy voice. Weasel looked at him and asked, is something wrong? Naruto said, yeah, plumbing feels like it was backed up when you get ready to release and your partner has to leave. As he crossed his arms and leaned against the wall. Eva said in his head, it's not my fault. I didn't even get off, you got to at least once. Naruto sighed and thought, I know Eva and I'm sorry for the way that sounded, it just was unique for my first time. Eva said, true. A few moments of silence later the door to the council chambers opened up and an ANBU said, you may enter now. Naruto pushed off the wall and began to walk in with his arms crossed and Weasel behind him. The room was silent as both walked in and Tsunade said, thank you both for coming, Naruto. If you would please take a seat at the table there, and we will call you forward in a few moments, but you need to hear this debriefing of Weasel since you are involved to some degree. Naruto said, yes, Tsunade-sama. As he walked over and sat down. Tsunade said, now as I said before they entered, no one is to react to anything they say or do until I say otherwise. Do so will be considered treason and I will have you executed because I am not in the mood for bullshit today. Now Weasel, please remove your mask and state your name. Weasel reached for his mask as he said, my name is Uchiha Itachi. As he showed his face. Gasps were heard throughout the room and several of the shinobi in the room tensed along with the ANBU while several others paled. Tsunade slammed her fist into the table and screamed, settle down. While releasing some Ki. Everyone slowly calmed down, though a few shinobi and clan heads held weapons under the table. Tsunade said, now that everyone is calmed down, the Sandaime would like to speak. Sarutobi stood up and said, now many of you are wondering why an S-rank missing Nin is in this room and we are ordering you all to sit down and be quiet. The truth is at the time of the Uchiha massacre Itachi was in my office getting briefed on an S-rank mission. Making several people look at him in shock. A civilian said, but if that's true then why does everyone including yourself claim he was responsible? If it wasn't him then who was it? Koharu and Hamaru both were sweating and Sarutobi said, if you all notice, there is a council member not present. The reason he is not present because if he does appear, he will be killed on sight. The reason is Danzo ordered his secret ANBU unit he created and ran illegally to kill the Uchiha. Had Itachi not been in my office and Sasuke in the academy, then odds are both would be dead. We don't know why Danzo did it, but we believed that the Uchiha police force discovered some of Danzo illegal activities, and before they could react to the information they had, he eliminated them. Now as for why I stated Itachi was the one responsible is for 3 reasons. The first reason was Danzo has had a lot of political backing thanks to bribes and blackmail, including members of this council. As he looked at the civilian members and a few gulped. Sarutobi continued, now I don't know who all he had in his pocket, but I ordered an investigation as one of my last acts as Hokage, and once the ANBU finds out, those members will be killed for treason and all their family homes and land will be confiscated. Making those who gulp pale. Tsunade said, however, if after this meeting those who wish to admit their crimes come before me and confess on what you did for Danzo, as well as why you were supporting him, I will be far more merciful. You will spend a year in jail and lose your council seat, as well as have to pay the village a fine to be determined by me, but at least you won't be killed and lose your home. Your choice. Sarutobi cleared his throat and said, now the second reason I lied about the truth was because of Sasuke. Since he found his family dead right after Itachi did. Itachi believed that Sasuke would go on a killing spree looking for anyone he thought might have done it, so he made Sasuke believe he did it with a genjutsu. The final reason was because of the mission that Itachi here has been on since then. The one I was briefing him on before the massacre. Now Itachi, please inform the council here what you discovered. Itachi nods and said, my mission was to track down rumors on a group calling themselves Akatsuki. At the time all we had on them was that Orochimaru was a member of this group and that they were composed of S-rank criminals. I originally was going to be declared a missing nin for stealing the forbidden scroll of seals, though the one I would take would be a fake, but only the Hokage and myself would know that. Once that happened, I was to infiltrate this group and discover who all the members were and what they wanted. After the massacre of my family, it was decided that would be considered my crime and make it more believable that I was an S-rank missing nin. Now that you understand what my original orders were, I will begin what I discovered. The group is composed of 10 primary members and several sleeper agents throughout the elemental nations. To all but 3 members, the leader of the organization is a member named Pain, who holds the legendary Rinnegan bloodline. All information on it has been submitted to the Hokage and classified. The real leader, however, is someone who we have believed to have been dead for several years. In my investigation, I discovered the real leader is none other than Uchiha Madara, and that he was the one responsible for the Kyuubi attack on our village. Making everyone wide-eyed, and Naruto narrowed his eyes. A civilian asked, "How is that possible?" "He died fighting the Shodame Hokage." Itachi said, "It is possible because of the 5th level of the Sharingan. It gives the Sharingan user eternal youth. All information besides that is classified by order of the Hokage." Murmurs broke out for several moments, and Tsunade said, "Quite." As everyone stopped talking, she said, "Proceed with the rest, Itachi." Itachi said, "Yes, Hokage-sama. Now that everyone knows who the leader is, I will brief you on the other members. Each members besides Madara is grouped in pairs. Pain's partner is a woman named Konan. She has the ability to turn her body into paper and control any paper around her into weapons that she can use to kill. The rest of the members are all S-rank missing nins, and information on them could be found in the bingo book, but those members are Zetsu of Grass, Kakuzu of Waterfall, Haiden of Hot Springs, Sasori of Suna, Kisame of Mist. Though because of his battle with Naruto-kun, he lost one of his arms as well as one of his kidneys. Naruto smirked as he saw several people look at him. Naruto said, "I got the arm as a trophy if anyone wants to see it." Several people paled, and Itachi smirked a half-second before hiding it and said, "Now where was I? Oh yes, Orochimaru is a former member, though he still has ties to the group. The last member of the group is Deidara of IWA." Several people murmured at this, and a glare from Tsunade shut them up. After she nods to Itachi, he continued, "Now that is all the current members, and there can only be 10 full-time members because they require one of these." As he showed his hand that had a ring on it, Naruto asked, "What is so special about that ring, Weasel?" Itachi said, "These rings are part of the ritual used to capture and extract a bijou from a Jinchuriki like yourself, so they may use them to destroy all the hidden villages and enslave the world." Murmurs broke out, and Sarutobi asked, "What exactly are the rings for, Itachi? I mean, would you go into more detail?" Itachi nods and said, "Each member is assigned a bijou to capture and control, with Madara able to control all of them. As I said before, the rings are part of a jutsu. The rings themselves, when channeling chakra into them, is like a hand sign to a jutsu. Each hand sign allows control of one bijou. The bijou, if it was captured, I could control, would have been the Kyuubi. However, as I said before, Madara ring allows him control of all the bijou, and his Sharingan also allows him to control Kyuubi if it were free. While it is inside of Naruto, it cannot be controlled by the Sharingan or the rings." Naruto nods and thought, "Make sure we get all information on those men later, Eva, so I know what to expect." Eva said, "Yes, Naruto." A civilian said, "Then we should kill him before they have a chance to capture the Kyuubi." Making several members agree, and Naruto shot a senbon at the desk in front of the man who said that, shocking everyone in the room, and Naruto said, "That could have been an exploding one just as easy and you would be dead. Now this." As he raised his other hand showing the glowing crystal, "is my thrust cannon. It is currently at 75% power, which is more than enough to kill every man and woman in this room." Making everyone pale, Sarutobi said, "Naruto, stop." Naruto said, "No. I am sick and tired of this. I came here today to accept my birthright and to talk about not only my political marriage for the new peace treaty between Suna and us, but also to talk about starting a clan with my bloodline. Now, because of that idiot and those who agreed with it, I am wondering if I should just release Kyuubi and let it kill everyone in Konoha." Making everyone pale even more, a civilian said, "Is that a threat, Kyuubi?" Naruto smirked, and a puff of smoke appeared next to Naruto, shocking everyone as the yandame appeared, grabbing Naruto's arm, and he looked shocked as well and asked, "Dad?" The yandame said, "Yes. Now calm down and listen. I don't have much time. My soul powers the seal, and if you ask it, I will release the Kyuubi, since I am sickened by the way Konoha has treated you, but I ask that you give them another chance, son. This is probably the only time I will be able to speak to you. I am sorry for choosing you, but I could not ask anyone else to give up their child when I myself couldn't." Sarutobi, I want my son to be given Sannin travel rights to come and go as he pleases. I know you have your mother's bloodline. There is a safety deposit box in the custody of the Fire Lord which contains her family scrolls. Have Sarutobi ask for them. I love you, son, and even if you destroy Konoha, I am proud of you. Live a long and happy life. Goodbye, my son. As he was gone in a puff of smoke, Naruto looked at the spot where the yondaime was, and he closed his eyes and closed his hand, and the glow from it disappeared, and he said, "Sorry," as he walked toward the door. The two ANBU at the door bowed slightly at him and opened the door and closed it. After he was gone, the room was in silence for several minutes, shocked by what they just seen and heard. A civilian asked, "Was that real?" Itachi said, "Yes, that was not a henge or genjutsu. That was the yondaime Hokage." Sarutobi sighed and said, "Damn Konoha," making everyone look at him shocked. Inoichi asked, "What do you mean, sir?" Sarutobi said, "We have most likely just lost one of the strongest ninja in the village because of idiots like him," pointing to the one who said to kill Naruto. Chuza asked, "What do you mean?" Sarutobi chuckled and said, "None of you know how strong Naruto really is or about his special abilities he now has. I don't even know what his bloodline is." Tsunade said, "Ice," making everyone look at her. Tsunade sighed and said, "Yesterday Naruto asked Shizune to run a test on his bloodline because when the Kyuubi chakra was cut off from him after he fought Orochimaru the first time, he was able to use an ice bloodline. I walked into the room when she was running the test and saw the results. I then told her how to help him use it with the Kyuubi chakra, so he has began to train to use it." Sarutobi took a deep breath and said, "That will make him that much more valuable to other villages. Not only has he learned the Rasengan, but he has created his own version that can be thrown. It is the move he used to injure Kisame. Then there is his chakra saber and chakra scythe, his exploding senbons, his armor, his water jutsu, plus Suna gave him several of their wind jutsu as a gift for marring the Kazekage sister, who he OWNS now because I ordered him to fight for her against Danzo-san. Then there is his Kagebunshin no jutsu where he can make 1,000 of them, as well as the fact he now has the Toad summoning contract. We have someone who has several A and S rank jutsu that any village would want in the hands of a person who just was given Sannin travel rights. Not to mention he has already been asked to be a feudal lord of a country, and he is part owner in all water shipping companies. If he wanted to, he could tax Konoha and the fire country, and we would have no choice but to pay it, or he could refuse to ship to Konoha, and most of our seafood, high-grade iron and fruits come from companies he is partner in, and he could destroy Konoha without raising a finger, all because of idiots like him." Pointing to the same man again. The man saw everyone in the room glaring at him, and he was pale, and he said, "But I didn't know he was the son of the yondaime." Sarutobi snorts and said, "What does it matter? Are you so ready to accept him for that fact when nothing has changed about Naruto from before you heard that?" The man looked down, and Sarutobi said, "Tsunade, if you don't mind, I need to send a message to the feudal lord. Can we wrap this up?" Tsunade said, "Right, you're all dismissed." As everyone was leaving, the man who called for Naruto to die quickly left before anyone else, and after they were gone, Sarutobi said, "Damn Konoha." Tsunade sighed and said, "What should we do, sensei? I mean, he could have killed us." Sarutobi chuckled and said, "You can come out now." A shimmer on the wall and Naruto appeared, and Itachi said, "I take it that was your armor special ability." Naruto said, "One of them. Sorry about that, old man, but I am not going to sit back and be called a demon anymore. I am tired of this shit." Sarutobi said, "I know though, how did you do that with your father?" Naruto rubbed his head and said, "Actually, I don't know if it was real or not, but when I was meditating yesterday before I was released from the hospital, that sort of really happened. I found myself in this sewer place, and I found the cage of the Kyuubi, but all I could see was his red eyes with black slits behind the cage, and there was this piece of paper in front of the cage. I don't know why, but I walked toward the paper, but before I got too close to it, Dad appeared and said basically what I had him say just then. The only difference was he asked me to ask you to ask the feudal lord for the box and the Sannin papers. I had him order you. I think it was real though." Sarutobi said, "It could be. Please do not threaten the council again though, Naruto, because you might have made you some more enemies." Naruto said, "Yeah, but thanks to that little play, word is spreading about Dad and me, and people will start changing, but you did raise a valid point. What changed about me from before and now?" Sarutobi said, "True." Naruto said, "Now how do you know about me owning all those companies?" Sarutobi said, "Jiraiya found out. He asked around in Wave, and some guy said we needed to treat you right or you could cut us off." Naruto frowned and said, "I thought I was only a silent partner. Damn." Tsunade said, "Well, good job, kid. I would have paid to see someone threaten the council like you just did, but don't do it again. Naruto said, yeah, I didn't want my ice bloodline to be known though, or about Eva as much as possible. Sarutobi said, I had to give them some info to calm them down. Naruto said, and scare them silly. With a pointed look. Sarutobi said, that too. So what do you plan to do now? Naruto said, I got some wind and water control exercises to learn. I would go to the library again, but I can only go certain days. Tsunade said, have you thought about where you and the girls are going to live? Naruto frowned and said, no, not yet. Why? Tsunade looked at Sarutobi, who nods, and Tsunade said, between the Sarutobi land and the Shodame lands is some property that belongs to me that belonged to the Nidaime Hokage. It was going to be his family home, but his wife died before they had any children and he never wanted to remarry. If you want, I am willing to give it to you. Naruto looked at her and asked, why? What do you get out of it? Tsunade said, the place is falling down and I don't have any children. Shizune is the only family I have left and I am leaving her the Shodame home. When I die, if I don't give it to someone, the village can claim it for themselves, and I don't want them to have it because I have read the reports they done to you and a few other things I am mad about. I figure I might as well give it to you to stop them. I will change the blood seal on the library so you can read some of my grand uncle's jutsu scrolls he has there and make them part of your family jutsu. They're all water jutsu and a few kenjutsu jutsu. Naruto's eyes were wide and said, I'll accept. Thanks, Tsunade Bakon. Tsunade got a tick on her eyebrow and hit him on the head and said, don't call me that, Gaki. Naruto smiled a real smile and said, thanks though. Tsunade said, no problem, Gaki. Naruto took a deep breath and said, there is something else though. Since I found out that I have the ice bloodline, that means I also had a relative who died on the bridge in Wave. I need to go to the Land of Water and go to their Hall of Records. I want to see if I can find any other family members who might still be alive and also find out more about my mom. I know Dad was an orphan, but maybe I can find something about her. Tsunade frowned and said, very well, but only after I think you're strong enough to go on your own. Naruto said, very well. Tsunade said, I'll have a genin clean up the place for you today, and tomorrow after your team training, I'll show you the place. Naruto said, thanks. Well, I guess I better go train, see ya. As he left. After he was gone, Sarutobi said, you just made yourself a loyal friend, Tsunade. Tsunade said, yeah, but he's going to give me gray hairs. Sarutobi said, you have no idea. Good luck with the paperwork. As he left with a smile on his face. Tsunade glared at his retreating form. Naruto walked through the village with a small spring in his step and thought, threatening a council member usually $500 fine, threatening the entire council usually a $5,000 fine, having a Kagebunshin use sexy no jutsu as dad and scare the shit out of the council with threatening to release Kyuubi. Priceless. When in political headaches arise, to get rid of them make them want to avoid you. As a smile formed on his face. He saw a few people nod toward him and thought, strange. I figured by now people would have forgotten about my part of the invasion. Well, Tenten wanted me to come by after I got out, so here I go. As he changed direction. 10 minutes later, Naruto opened the door to the Wolf Claw weapon shop and saw Dustin behind the counter and said, hi. Dustin looked at him and said, hello. I'm sorry, but I am all out of daughters after you got the last one. As he glared at Naruto. Naruto sighed and said, it wasn't my fault. Things were not supposed to happen like they did. Dustin said, but they did, so now what are you going to do about it? Naruto said, what can I do? All 4 of the women in my life have basically decided for themselves what they want to do and are going to do it even if I say no. Dustin blinked and asked, 4? I thought there was only 3. Eva appeared in a puff of smoke as her red-headed self and said, the 4th would be me. Hello, creator. Dustin blinked and said, you're real. As he walked around the counter. Naruto said, yeah, though this is only temporary. We're working on a way to let her stay out, but it's taking time. Dustin touched Eva's arm and head and said, you feel like flesh and blood. How? Eva said, combined sealing, chakra control, and ninjutsu. I can only take 1 strong hit so far before I am dispelled or run out of chakra. Though it does allow for physical contact between Naruto and me. Dustin said, I see. You're different, Eva. You're evolving from the original program somehow. Eva said, I know, I am self-aware. I have been since shortly after bonding with Naruto-kun. Dustin looked at Naruto and said, so what are you doing here? Naruto said, Tenten asked me to come see here after I got out of the council chamber today. I just got out and came here. Dustin said, well, she's not here. She went to meet someone about something. Naruto said, I see. For what it's worth, I am sorry about all this. I tried to keep her out of my business, but she doesn't take no for an answer. Dustin chuckled and said, you're right about that. For what it's worth, kid, I may not like the way things happened, but I am actually glad she's with you. At least I know you will try and make her happy. Naruto said, I will try, though I know I will make mistakes. Dustin said, we all do. So can I help you with anything? Naruto thought a second and said, do you mind if Eva and I look at your inventory? We are working on several things to make us stronger and for the future, and we need ideas on how to do them. Dustin said, sure, look around. Eva should be able to scan everything pretty quickly. Eva said, yes, thank you, Dustin-sama. As she began to walk around the store, Dustin looked at her and asked, why did she change her looks? Naruto sighed and said, because Tenten keep confusing her with her late mother. Dustin said, I see. So what was the council meeting about? Naruto shrugged and said, a little this, little that. Uchiha Itachi back in the village, and it turns out Danzo had the Uchiha killed and Itachi was a spy for Konoha. Some idiots thought it would be a good idea to have me killed, so I scared the shit out of them, and they know who my dad is now. Nothing big. Dustin blinked as he processed everything he heard before he chuckled and said, I see. You are a surprising one. Eva walked back over and said, I scanned everything and found a few that might come in handy later, though I am nearly out of chakra again. I will save the rest for later. As she went up in smoke and Naruto reached down and grabbed the small ball and placed it on his shoulder where it was reabsorbed into the armor. Dustin saw this and said, interesting. My wife and I never thought of anything like that. Naruto said, some of my enemies now nearly my entire arsenal now, so I am having to add to it. I guess I better get to training then. Tell Tenten I came by and she might be late coming from practice tomorrow. Tsunade-bakan is giving us the night aim home to start the Namikaze clan in. Dustin was wide-eyed and said, you're kidding. Naruto said, nope. Tsunade going to show it to us tomorrow after team practice. Dustin said, I will be sure to tell Tenten. She's going to love that. Naruto said, well, I best be going. CYA. As he left. After he was gone, Dustin sighed and said, so what's up? Tenten stepped out from the back and said, I don't want to talk to him right now. I'm not ready yet. Dustin sighed and said, if you want out, then tell him Tenten. I am sure that he will understand. Tenten said, it's not that. I like him, that's not the problem, I'm just confused right now. He talks about family and kids and plans for the future, but I'm not ready to think about those things. I want to make a name for myself and fulfill my dream, but As she felt a pair of arms circle around her, making her freeze in place. Dustin saw who was behind her and her freeze and said, well, I guess I need to see if that material I ordered has come in. CYA later, dear. As he smiled and left. Tenten slowly turned her head and saw Naruto standing there, and he looked at her with kindness in his eyes and said, hi. Tenten blushed and said, hi. Look about. As she was silenced with Naruto putting his finger to her lips and said, shoo. As he stepped back away from her. Tenten frowned and Naruto said, I understand how you feel, Tenten. Believe me, I do. I went from thinking everyone hates me to having 4 women wannabe in my life. I understand you're confused and frightened by all this, and so am I. I'm scared I'm gonna hurt you, or that someone will hurt you to get to me, or that you will wake up and realize you don't care for me. I'm scared about what it's gonna be like to be a husband or a father, and I know you're scared of being a wife and a mother. I understand and I respect you wanting to fulfill your dream and make a name for yourself. I'm the same way. I'm sorry for mentioning about kids, and I don't mean right now. I was just thinking like 5 or 10 years down the road. Shizen talked to me about sex, and she told me that it's not healthy for someone our age to have kids right now, so I wasn't meaning to make you uncomfortable. It was just something that Eva and I were talking about the future, and I thought I would tell you and Yu-chan as well, so that way while we try to figure out a way to make our future family better, you could help with it. Since things are going so fast, how about this? We spend some time together in casual atmosphere and work on being friends first. Forget the wedding thing and the engagement thing for now. If that is as far as we want to take it, that's fine, but I am willing to take time and get to know you if you're willing to do the same. If we both decide to move on in our relationship, then I will do the right thing and ask you to marry me. Not this political bullshit. Earlier today, I nearly killed the council over their idiotic ideas, and if they tried to force us to marry and we didn't want to, I would make their lives a living hell. I am known as the prank master from hell for a reason, you know. Tenten smiled a little and asked, How did you get in here behind me like that, and how did you know I was here? Naruto said, I knew you were here because Eva detected you. As for getting behind you, I'm leaning against the building outside waiting to see if you will accept my invention. I created a cage bunshin behind you when I left. I'm gonna go train in 2 of my elements, wind and water, as well as some other training. If you want to join me, I am waiting. As he went up in smoke, Tenten glared at the spot he was at before she walked out to the door and saw Naruto just around the corner and said, Give me 5 minutes to get my things. As she slammed the door and went to grab her gear. After locking up the store, she asked, So where are we going to train? Naruto said, I learned some really cool exercises to work on water affinities, and I think Gigi said you had water also, right? Tenten said, Yeah. Naruto said, If you want, I can tell you the first one and we can work on it while we play 20 questions. I want to get to know you better, and I am sure you're the same. What do you say? Tenten said, Fine, show me the way. Naruto said, Great, come on. As he took his hand and began to run through the village. 10 minutes later, the pair was standing at the lake at the bottom of the waterfall Naruto was on the day before, and he put his hands together and said, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. As 60 clones appeared, and he said, All right, divide evenly, 1/3 work on water, 1/3 on wind, and the rest on chakra control. Go. As all the clones said, Yes, sir. As they immediately got to work. Tenten saw them divide up and go away, and she said, I don't think I will ever get used to that. Naruto shrugged and said, It does come in handy, though now I know why it was in the Forbidden Scroll. So you ready to learn this? Tenten said, I guess, what do I got to do? Naruto said, You know water walking, right? Tenten nods and Naruto said, Good. The first exercise is you have to walk out on the water and then send your chakra into the water until your chakra forms a circle about 5 feet around you, and you use your chakra to make the water spin either clockwise or counterclockwise, not both. This will increase your reserves, control, and water manipulation so your elemental control gets better. Tenten said, All right, let's try this. As she walked out and put her hand in a ram seal and began to push her chakra into the water. After a few minutes with her sweating, she said, This is harder than it looks. Naruto said, I know, after trying it with my clones all day yesterday after I got out of the hospital, they could only get about 1 foot or 2 of water to move like I wanted. Even now it looks like they are only at 3 feet of control. Shizen said this could take years to master, but it would help in the long run. Tenten nods, and after about 5 more minutes she walks to shore and said, I need a break, my chakra is low. Naruto said, I guess then we could spend time talking while you rest. Tenten said, I guess. So what do you want to know? Naruto thought a moment and said, What is your dream you spoke about earlier? Tenten blinked and said, That's surprising. Nobody ever actually asked that before. I've always had to tell people what it was. Well, the truth is I always wanted to become strong and famous like my idol Tsunade, and I want to prove that women can be just as good as men can. Naruto blinked and said, Huh? Tenten looked at him and asked, Huh? What do you mean, huh? In a demanding tone. Naruto rubbed his head and said, Well, of course women can be as strong as men. Who said they weren't? Looking confused. Tenten blinked and looked at Naruto, who was still rubbing his head, and she asked, Haven't you ever noticed how women are treated different than men? Like we are weaker and can only be of use because of our bodies. Naruto frowned and thought a moment and said, I guess I never really thought about it before. Now that you mention it, I remember Sakura-chan always getting took for special classes while we were running laps, but I thought that her and the others were learning special moves. Tenten snorts and said, Flower arrangements and flirting are not what I call special moves. I wanted to stab my teacher in the academy with a dull, rusted kunai. Naruto thought a moment and said, Well, that wasn't what I thought they were getting taught. I thought that since girls had better chakra control than guys, they were being taught how to control it during those classes. Tenten burst out laughing and said, You're an idiot. Naruto frowned and looked down, and Tenten saw this and said, Sorry, I didn't mean it literally. Naruto waved his hand and sat down on the shore and said, I've been called worse before. I'm used to it. Tenten got up and sat down beside him and said, I didn't mean it though. I was just saying that if that was what you thought we were learning and why women have better control of our chakra, you're wrong. The truth is women have smaller chakra reserves naturally, and because we have smaller amounts, then we have better control. That is why most medical neens are female as well as genjutsu users. Naruto thought a moment and said, So that is why you chose weapons, because it's not one of those 2 fields, so that way when you show everyone how strong you are, they can't say it comes natural to you. Tenten was wide-eyed and said, Yeah. How did you guess? Naruto said, it makes sense. At least to me, in a way it does. During your match with Temari, you used chakra strings to pull your weapons at her for the second part, right? Tenten said, partially. It was special ninja wire that can be controlled with chakra. Naruto said, well, I thought it was chakra strings, but what you used would be the same as what I was thinking. You used your natural chakra control to enhance your chosen field, like driving a nail into the wall to show everyone, look, I did this as a woman. Tenten thought about what he said a moment and said, I never thought about it like that before. I just thought that by choosing weapons and everything associated with it, then everyone would have to recognize me as the master in that field. Naruto said, well, you're not weak. Most of the worst hits I ever took were from women. Hell, Tsunade put me through a wall when I first met her, and Sakura not too far behind that, if she would learn to channel her energy like she does when I pissed her off. Yugugo can cut you up faster than you can see. Temari can stop nearly anything that is thrown at her, and then there is you. Tenten asked, what about me? Naruto said, Gai-sensei said that you had 100% accuracy at throwing weapons. I can only hit the target 7 out of 10 times, and that's if it's not moving. I usually only hit 3 or 4 times a moving target and never where I am aiming at. For someone, male or female, to have that good of accuracy at throwing weapons makes you a very deadly. I know I wouldn't want you to throw them at me because I would be cut up into little tiny pieces, and that's with the armor. Then there is all those weapons you have. I know you keep a bunch sealed, but I remember when we were in the academy and I saw you outside the window throwing weapons, and I still don't know where the hell you keep all them. Tenten blushed and said, a girl's got to have her secrets. Naruto said, I can understand that. But you're not weak, and anyone who says you are has never seen you fight. Hell, I bet you could have turned Sasuke team into chopped liver with his Sharingan if you would have faced him. Hell, you would have beat anyone in the exams besides Temari and Gaara, and that's only because there are no wind users in this village for you to have trained against to know of that weakness. I bet if you went against wind users all the time, you would figured out a way to throw your weapons against the wind and kicked her ass. Tenten asked, you really think so? Naruto said, I do. Tenten smiled and kissed his cheek and said, thanks. Naruto blushed and asked, for what? Tenten said, for being a nice guy. Naruto said, I try. So what do you want to know about me? Tenten said, let's see. I know about your parents, Eva, the suit, furball, wave. I know your dream is to be Hokage and someday have a family. You love ramen. Let's see. Naruto waited for Tenten to think a few moments, and she asked, well, I don't know. What's something about you I don't know? Naruto snorts and said, there's a lot about me you don't know. I like the color orange. Tenten said, I thought that you wore that jumpsuit because nobody would sell you anything else. Naruto said, partially, but the real reason I like orange is because it reminds me of sunrise and sunset. I like to watch both because they both represent both beginnings and ends. Tenten thought a moment and said, I guess I could see that. I never really thought of it like that. Naruto asked, what about you? Tenten asked, what about me? Naruto asked, what's your favorite color and why? Tenten said, you may laugh, but it's silver. Naruto asked, why? Not that I think it's bad, but I never heard anyone say they liked the color silver before. Tenten reached up and pulled out a necklace from around her neck, and it had a ring on it, and said, because this is my mom's wedding ring. Besides her dairy, this is basically the only thing I have that is all hers, and it's silver. Naruto said, I see. Your turn. Tenten thought a moment and said, hobbies. Naruto said, watching sunrises and sunsets. Training. Fishing. Tenten asked, fishing? You mean using kunais and strings to catch fish? Naruto said, no, I mean using a fishing pole and take my time to relax doing them. I learned how to do it when I was in Wave. I took Inari our fishing since. As he looked away. Tenten saw him look away and asked, since what? Naruto bit his lip and said, there's something you're going to hear soon, and I guess I better explain it. You remember Tsunami, Inari mom? Tenten nods and Naruto said, something happened to her and she's going to be a mom again. Tenten blinked and narrowed her eyes and asked, what does that have to do with you? Naruto said, the father's not around anymore. Her son and father don't know about it yet. Tenten frowned and said, so? Naruto said, only Tsunami, Yuchan, and now you know the truth. Tsunami a good woman, and she's done so much for me, I wanted to help her where I could. She was there for me after my first kill, and so when I was in wave learning to use the suit, I said I agreed to say the baby's mine. Tenten took a deep breath and asked, "Is it?" Naruto said, "No. I hope he was one of the men I killed." Tenten looked at him a moment before she pieced everything together and said, "Oh, I didn't." Naruto interrupted her and said, "Nobody else knows and I want it to remain that way. The only reason I'm telling you is because people will talk after the baby's born and I don't want you to think I'm cheating on you." She had to be strong for her son and father so much that she couldn't even deal with it. She just had to keep going on. I helped her where I could, but there's not much anyone can do. I hope you understand. Tenten said, "I do. That's something nearly every woman fears on some level. So any other hobbies?" Trying to change the subject, Naruto said, "Dancing." Tenten looked shocked and said, "Really? Now that I did not see coming. You any good?" Before Naruto could respond, music started to play a light tune, and Naruto chuckled and said, "I guess I can show you. Shall we?" As he stood up and held out his hand. Tenten said, "But I don't know how to dance." Naruto said, "Then follow my lead." Tenten bit her lip and slowly took his hand, and Naruto put both her arms over his shoulders, and he put his hands on her side, and she giggled a second, and Naruto said, "Still ticklish, huh?" Tenten glared at him as they began to dance, and Tenten, after a few minutes, put her head on his chest and closed her eyes, listening to his heartbeat and the music. They danced for around 20 minutes, and she looked down and went wide-eyed and found they were on the lake, and she looked at Naruto shocked and started to say something when he said, "I'm using my chakra to make a platform under us so we can dance. You're really good at this." Tenten blushed and said, "I got a good teacher." Naruto said, "So how do you feel? Want to train some more, talk some more, or call it a day?" Tenten looked at the sky and said, "It's already that late." As she saw, it was about an hour till sunset. Naruto said, "Yeah." Tenten yawned and said, "Man, I didn't realize I was so tired. I guess we should head back. I bet Dad's upset." Naruto said, "I'll walk you home." Tenten said, "I can walk myself." Naruto said, "I know. I just thought it would give us a chance to talk some more on the way back." A swirl of leaves appeared near them, and a splash was heard, and both looked over and saw an ANBU who had fell in the water, making both teens laugh, and the ANBU glared at them through his mask and said, "Naruto Uzumaki, you have gate duty that you are late for." Naruto frowned and said, "Nobody informed me." The ANBU said, "It's on the wall as you enter the mission room. It is updated every Wednesday." Naruto said, "Thanks. I will head there and check it in the future." The ANBU nods and leaves, and Naruto looked at Tenten and said, "I guess I can't walk you home after all." Tenten said, "It's all right. I had fun though." Naruto said, "I'm glad. I did also." Tenten said, "Well, you better go." Naruto nods and starts to turn away when Tenten turns him back around and kisses his lips lightly and stepped back and said, "Good night." Naruto smiled and said, "Night. See you tomorrow," as he ran off the lake and went toward the main gates. After he was gone, Tenten sighed before she walked toward the shore and blinked when she got there, as another Naruto was standing there, and said, "If boss can't walk you home, at least one of us could," as he motioned toward all the clones. Tenten looked at them a moment before a sweet little smile appeared on her face and said, "What's a girl to do? Tell you what, fight each other and the last one standing gets to walk me home." All the Kagebunshin started to instantly fight, and Tenten giggled to herself as she left without the clones noticing. When Naruto got to the gates, he saw Kakashi, who was reading his book, and Naruto frowned before he said, "Sorry I'm late. Got lost on the road of life." Kakashi looked from his book and said, "Second right and straight on till morning. CYA." As he smiled before leaving in a swirl of leaves. Naruto looked at the other guard and said, "Hi." The guard grunted and said, "Wake me if anyone comes." As he closed his eyes. Naruto thought, "Great, another Shikamaru. Damn woman. Did she have to tell them that?" The next day, Naruto walked onto Training Ground 7 and saw Sakura sitting on the bridge, and he looked around and put his hands together, and 10 puffs of smoke appeared, and he said, "Get to it." The Kagebunshin that appeared divided in half, with 5 of them standing on the water while the other 5 grabbed rocks and began to try to cut them. Naruto sat down on the bridge and closed his eyes and began to meditate, ignoring Sakura looking at him. Sakura cleared her throat and said, "Hi, Naruto." Naruto said, "Hello, Sakura," in a neutral tone. Sakura frowned and looked down, and Naruto opened his eyes and said, "Sorry, I had guard duty till 4 a.m. this morning and I'm a little tired. It's not you. Tenten said, so even you need sleep, Mr. Stamina. With a smile. Naruto smiled and said, hey Tenchan. Sleep well? As he yawned. Tenten said, yeah. Kept dreaming of dancing on water though. With a mild blush on her face. Naruto said, we got to do that again sometime at night on a full moon. That way the silver moon will reflect off the water. Sakura was looking back and forward and asked, are you two going out? Naruto rubbed his head and Tenten said, I'm engaged to him. Sakura's eyes got wide and she looked at Naruto shocked and Naruto said, long story short, I'm supposed to marry Tenchan, Tamari-chan, and Yu-chan after the Chunin exams in Suna. Sakura asked, but how? What's going on? Why him? Naruto rubbed his collar to his cloak and said, what can I say? Woman love a sharp dress man. Tenten burst out laughing holding her side as Sakura gaped at Naruto and a voice that all three recognized said, my, seems you are all three full of energy today. Making them look and saw Kakashi sitting on the top of the bridge in a crouch holding his book. Naruto looked around and said, where's Weasel? Kakashi looked at Naruto questionably and Naruto said, the Hokages give me info ahead of time, especially when it nearly cost me my life. A swirl of leaves appeared on the bridge and Sakura flinched and said, Sasuke. Naruto ignored Sakura and said, hey Weasel. Itachi looked at Naruto and said, hello Naruto-kun. I see you are doing wind and water manipulation exercises. As he looked at the clones. Naruto said, yeah, so what's the plan? Itachi looked at Kakashi who was looking at Itachi with a frown behind his mask and Kakashi said, well we need to see what you can do and Itachi said, actually Kakashi-san, Hokage-sama has stated that all three here have outside training besides what they are learning from us. She wants us to work on the fundamentals with them for now like chakra control, hand sign speed, endurance, stamina, and weapon efficiency. Combat training can come later. Now I will ask if you know something if you do say yes if not remain silent. We will then go from there. Kakashi frowned and said, I don't think they are ready for the kind of training you're proposing Itachi. That is ANBU level training and Naruto is only barely A. Naruto interrupts him and said, why don't you just go back and blow Sasuke team Kakashi? You don't want to train any of us and as far as you care we can all die. Tenten already a hell of a kunoichi and has learned more from Gai-sensei than she ever could learn from you. Sakura is learning from Tsunade things that would have been helpful back in Wave and the Chunin exams but you were too busy kissing Sasuke ass to teach her and remember you said I wasn't even worth you time. Kakashi said, watch your remark Chunin. In a demanding voice. Naruto said, truth hurts doesn't it? As he glared at him and Tenten placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder who sighed and said, sorry Kakashi-san. Your past experience with this team leaves me with a lack of faith in your credibility to teach us anything. I will however reserve judgment until later. Kakashi frowned behind his mask and Itachi said, now let's begin tree walking, water walking, kunai balancing, whirlpool walking getting a yes from all three on the first two and only Naruto on the third and silence on the last. Itachi said, I see. Then after warm-up Sakura and Tenten will work on the kunai balancing while Naruto-kun works on the whirlpool walking. Once both girls can do both exercises for an hour showing mastery they will join Naruto-kun. Now for warm-ups we will begin with a 5-mile hike while each of you will work on your hand seal speed by going over all 12 of them over and over again increasing your speed as you do it but do not mold your chakra doing that. We are only working on hand seal speed for now. Naruto asked, do you know one hand signs? Itachi looked at Naruto and said, yes, though there are 24 of them and I am not planning to teach them yet. Why? Naruto frowned and said, my bloodline can use one hand signs and I was hoping to at least get a reference point for them so I can practice with it outside of team training. Itachi said, all right, I will show you all 24 slowly only once though. Naruto said, that's all I need. Itachi went through them and Kakashi asked, I was not aware you had a bloodline Naruto. What is it? Naruto said, no offense Kakashi but I don't trust you right now so I won't tell you. With a glare. Tenten said, Naruto-kun, calm down. Naruto frowned and said, fine. As he looked at Itachi. Itachi shook his head and took a deep breath and said, now before we begin, I think you all should know exactly why these hand signs are important. Sakura said hand signs are used to make jutsu. Trying to show how smart she is. Itachi said, incorrect. Hand signs are actually what Naruto Kagebunshin are doing over there. They manipulate chakra into different forms, shapes, and elements. The first 5 hand signs, rat, ox, tiger, rabbit, and dragon, are actually the 5 main elements. Rat is earth, ox is lightning, tiger is fire, rabbit is wind, and dragon is water. Nearly every jutsu you see besides bloodlines will either begin or end with one of these hand signs. Now the next 3 are snake, horse, and ram. These 3 are shape manipulation of the element. The last 4 are control seals. Monkey, emu, boar, and bird allow for control of the element. So basically what you are doing is choosing a base element to start with, then begin shaping it and then controlling the shape so it doesn't fall apart before you add to it by adding a second element or more shape and control. Do you 3 understand? Naruto said, so basically if we started with dragon we could do that water dragon Zabuza and Kakashi used. Itachi said, no, it would be added in there, but the water dragon jutsu is a perfect example of each hand sign's meaning. As he flashed through the hand signs and a water dragon formed and killed the Kagebunshin. Naruto frowned and said, damn, one of them almost had the first exercise done. Itachi said, now do any of you have any more questions? No one said anything and Itachi said, all right, let's go. As he began to lead them through the woods for their hike. Kakashi looked down and thought, I really screwed up with them and it seems that it is getting worse. As he began to follow. Once they were back at the training grounds where they began, Itachi looked at Kakashi and said, will you work with them on the kunai balancing while I show Naruto-kun whirlpool walking? Kakashi said, all right. As he took the girls away from the water. Itachi walked to the water and went through 30 hand signs before touching the water and it began to spin and he said, now all you have to do is walk to the center of this whirlpool and stay there. The whirlpool will try and throw you away from the center so you have to constantly work on it or start back at the very beginning. Do you have any questions? Naruto said, no, Itachi-sensei. As he walked out on the water and made it about 2 steps before he was shoved 5 feet away from the edge of the whirlpool. Itachi said, this is a Jounin level chakra control exercise I learned from Kisame. Keep practicing. I can keep the whirlpool going for an hour. As he walked over and began to watch the girls practice while Kakashi pulled out his book and began to read. An hour later Naruto was panting as he stepped on the shore after the whirlpool dissolved and he said, that was harder than I thought. Itachi said, you made it to the 6th ring, that is not bad for your first attempt. You have better than average Genin level chakra control. Tenten was sitting down resting and asked, what do you mean? How could you tell his chakra control level? Itachi said, the whirlpool exercise creates 30 rings of water. They are divided into 6 rings, the furthest 6 are Genin chakra control, next 6 are Chunin, next 6 are Anbu, then Jounin and last is Medic Nin. Now the trick to this exercise besides showing what level you are at is also how much chakra you have. For Naruto he has more chakra than all of us put together, but because of his low control he is right at the border between a high Genin and low Chunin. Now from what I saw both you have excellent chakra control but you have smaller reserves. I would say Sakura would make it to about the 3rd or 4th ring and Tenten would be at the same level as Naruto but only barely. Both girls frowned and Tenten opened her mouth to say something when a scream of Itachi rang through the clearing with the sound of a Chidori. Naruto looked where the voice was coming from and saw Sasuke charging toward Itachi in a blur while holding his wrist, and as he neared Itachi, Kakashi was already in motion pulling Sakura out of the way and Itachi replaced himself. Sasuke however still had his speed going and without his Sharingan he did not see Itachi replace himself until he stabbed his hand through the log where Itachi had been destroying the log and still moving. However he was off balance, not expecting Itachi to get out of the way. However the next moment all eyes in the clearing saw the sight of blood and the sound of flesh being torn apart. Naruto was wide-eyed and screamed, "Nu!" Naruto was by Sasuke in moments, breaking Sasuke's arm as he removed it from Tenten, who tried to move but was too tired to get out of the way quick enough. Chest. Naruto held Tenten and held his hand over her chest where the wound was and was whispering in a scared voice, "No, Tenten. No. You can't be. Please God, no. Please someone." Kakashi turned his head as he saw Naruto crying for Tenten and thought, "There's nothing we can do. She's dead." As he looked at Sasuke, who was holding his arm while glaring at Itachi, who was in a tree looking at the scene in sadness. Sakura looked at Tenten in shock and was shaking as she turned to look at Sasuke and thought, "That could have been me." Eva appeared, shocking everyone but Naruto, and held Naruto and said, "There's nothing we can do for her. She's dead." Near his ear as she held him. Naruto closed his eyes and let tears fall a moment. Sasuke screamed, "Itachi!" completely ignoring the fact he just killed Tenten. Naruto clenched his fist in rage and set Tenten's body on the ground softly and slowly stood up and said, "Sasuke, I'm going to kill you. As the armor appeared around his feet and began to cover his body, and he turned, and everyone who saw the armor looked at the helmet cover his head, and the last thing they saw of Naruto's face was his slitted red eyes. Sasuke looked at Naruto in shock and said, "What happened to you, Dobe?" Naruto raised his arm and fired a senbon at Sasuke, who dodged to the side as the senbon hit the tree behind him exploded. Sasuke saw this and screamed, "Are you nuts? Have you lost your mind?" Sasuke took out a kunai and threw it at Naruto, and it bounced off his body. Sakura thought, what is that armor? Can he even see, or is he blind in there? Kakashi looked at Naruto and thought, how can he even stand in that armor? Can he walk at all, or if he moves will he fall if he loses his balance? Naruto said, "I'm going to kill you," as he began to stalk towards Sasuke. Sasuke, seeing this, began flashing through hand signs and said, "Fire style, fireball jutsu," as he breathed out a huge stream of fire at Naruto and covered his armor, and Sasuke thought, is he alive or dead? As he looked around, Itachi saw as the fire went away and Naruto still was stalking towards Sasuke and thought, has he thoughts in his head besides getting revenge on Sasuke? Naruto held up his other arm and it was glowing blue, and he jerked his arm slightly and a blast of chakra shot at Sasuke, who replaced himself with a log, and the blast destroyed the log. Sakura saw this and was scared and thought, why hasn't anyone gone to get help for Tenten? I'll go get help for her. I'll just pass him by and go get her some help. Sasuke gritted his teeth and said, what is wrong with you? Why do you even care at all about her? She's nothing but a weak little girl. Naruto growled and began to form a Rasen Shuriken in his hand, and he threw it at Sasuke, and Kakashi shoved Sasuke out of the way as it cut off a couple of hairs on his head and continued on until it sliced into a tree behind them, and the tree began to fall toward the ground. Kakashi stood up and said, enough, Naruto. Stop. There is nothing we can do to change the fact Tenten dead. Sasuke will be punished. Naruto said, no. There is no punishment for him but death. I will get revenge for Tenten on him. As he began to form a Rasengan in his hand and then charged at Sasuke, and Kakashi got in the way, raising his Hayate and began to flash through hand signs and grabbed his wrist, and lightning formed, and he shoved his hand forward and met Naruto Rasengan, and a shock wave went out as both Naruto and Kakashi tried to overpower the other, and Kakashi was gritting his teeth and said, stop this, Naruto, or I will have Tio kill you. I won't let you kill Sasuke. Naruto was gritting his teeth and said, then I will just have to kill you as well. As he held up his free hand and pointed it at Kakashi and Sasuke, who was behind him, and his hand began to glow, and Kakashi saw this and thought, that's the same attack he blew that tree up that log with. If it hits me, it will kill me and go after Sasuke. I have no choice. And said, last warning, stop or I will have Tio kill you, Naruto. Naruto said, Naruto dead. I am Iron Man. As he began to jerk his wrist, Kakashi saw this and thought, forgive me. As his Sharingan changed shape and he looked at the center of Naruto's chest, the area around Naruto's chest began to spin as the armor tried to absorb the chakra from it. Naruto looked down as he felt something pulling at the armor, and he saw a black void appearing on his chest, and he asked, what? As he began feeling himself being pulled apart, and he screamed, Eno, as he was pulled into the void that Kakashi made with his Sharingan. As Naruto disappeared, Kakashi fell to the ground panting. Sasuke let out a breath before he felt a blade at his neck, and Itachi said, foolish little brother, as he sliced Sasuke's neck, killing him. Naruto blinked as he looked around and found himself laying on the ground, and suddenly a team of NBU appeared around him, and he tried to move but found he couldn't and thought, Eva, why can't I move? Eva was silent a moment and said, the armor took electrical damage from Kakashi lightning jutsu. The armor will take some time to move, but... Naruto asked, but what? Eva was silent a moment and said, the trees around us. It was late fall a few moments ago, but it looks like it's late winter or early spring now. Naruto blinked and thought, what does that have to do with anything? Eva said, Naruto, I got a theory, but I need you to do something for me. An ANBU said, what do you think, Captain? An ANBU in a dog mask said, I don't know. I don't know if this is just some armor or if there is someone inside of it, and I don't know why it is in that crater. As he looked at the suit of armor in a 20-foot crater, Naruto said, hey, ANBU. The one in an Inu mask frowned and said, who are you and what are you doing here? Iron Man said, the name's Iron Man, but can you tell me what is today's date and year? I hit my head pretty hard when I was trying my invention out, and I want to make sure my memory's okay. Inu said, it's February 19th XXXX. Iron Man said, good, thanks. As flames shot out of his feet and the armor slid out of the crater following the slope as he took off flying into the air, and soon a sonic boom was heard and Naruto was flying through the air and Eva said, "So I was right, somehow we traveled time." Iron Man said, 8 months. It's 8 months before that day. I should have a day in the academy before graduate exam. That means Tenten Ali. Ah. As he suddenly felt his stomach in pain. Naruto was running through the village laughing and said, "You idiots will never catch me." As Anbu chased after him as people looked at the Hokage monument and saw it was painted. Suddenly Naruto grabbed his stomach and screamed in pain as his body began to dissolve as the Anbu landed around him and wondered what was going on as his body began to fade. Once it was gone they looked at each other and one said, "We need to report to the Hokage immediately about this." Iron Man flew wildly as he held his stomach and after 15 minutes the pain went away and he thought, what happened? I just felt pain and now I got memories of me being chased by Anbu after painting the Hokage monument. Eva was silent a moment and said, "There is a scientific theory that my creator learned. It said 2 objects could not exist at the same point at the same time. I believe that the Naruto from this time period has stopped existing and you have now taken his place or you will stop existing yourself soon." Iron Man frowned and landed on the ground and after 20 minutes he thought, "I guess it must be the first. So what now?" Eva appeared in front of him and said, "You've been given something that many people have wanted, a second chance to do things. You have memories of the future and can change them if you wanted to." Iron Man thought a moment and said, "Haku, Tenten, I could save them both." Eva said, "Yes, and you prepare for Akatsuki and Orochimaru and have your revenge." Iron Man smiled and said, "I love you, Eva," as he laughed. Eva joined in and the woods around them were covered with laughter. Hope you enjoyed, guys. This is the end.